This episode of Off My Shelf contains coarse language and adult conversation. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, my name is Tracy James, and welcome to Off My Shelf, a podcast about movies that are, well, off my shelf, where we go through my DVDs and talk about the movies in my collection. In this episode, Brendan Kreitz is here to talk about some awesome classic sci-fi with Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. Welcome!
G'day, how's it going?
I'm so happy you're here. Our listeners will notice that you have an accent because you're my first international guest.
Oh, well, I hope that your listeners are able to deal with my very broad Australian accent. I know that sometimes in Canada it can be a little difficult to understand, but I'm actually sometimes surprised because I don't think that I have an accent, but I've had a few experiences in Canada where people really couldn't understand me. So all the best, everyone. Otherwise, it'll just be Tracy and a noise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's true. That reminds me of the time my cousins were here from England, and her son, I took him out to go to like the mall or something like that when, in the normal times. And he's walking around and he was just like, everybody has such a weird accent. I'm like, you're in Canada. You're the one with the accent. And it like blew his mind. He's like, oh, I never thought about it that way. That's crazy. It was pretty funny. But yeah.
Especially because there are so many accents in the UK too. Like there's not even just like one. It's a lot. So
it's true. It's really, really true. And so one of the funny thing you brought up your accent too, is because the reason I know you is that we met each other while we were both in Japan. And I don't know why. Like, I knew you were Australian. You had an accent to my ear. That's fine. I guess we all had weird accents to Japanese people. Sure. But when I was there, I don't know if my hearing was more attuned because it was in a foreign land or something, but you never sounded that Australian, right?
Yeah. So do I now or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To me, okay, now you sound like super Australian. Like I can understand you just fine, but you're like, oh, he's got a strong accent is all I can think.
I remember because my housemates were Welsh. And so when I first got there, I was like, oh, their accent's pretty easy to understand. But when they talked to their mates, I could not understand them. Their accents just all of a sudden came back with like a vengeance. And I think maybe it was the same for me. I'd been there a little while by the time you got there. And we were teaching English. I remember the first lesson I ever went into, and like students that speak really good English. And I said, "Hey, everyone, how are you doing today?" And they all just stared at me. And I was like, "Oh, like, hey guys, like, how are you doing today?" And one person just looks at me and they go, "Ta-da!" And obviously that's what I sounded like to them. So I think by the time you got there, maybe I'd curbed my accent a little bit.
I don't know why I think that is so funny. Like, what?
I don't even think and I'm from Tasmania, which is, we have, I think, some of the milder Australian accents. Like if you go up to Queensland, that's where you get the Steve Irwin kind of accent. And I don't think I have that. Like obviously I have an accent, but I'm not yelling crikey, and I very rarely jump on crocodiles.
Do you play Knifey Spoony over there?
I'm only this makes me sound super dorky. I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons as a kid.
Oh no!
It was like big controversy in Australia when it first came out, and for whatever reason, my parents latched onto that. Even though I would argue, far worse things. So I do know what Knifey Spoony is, but only because other people have told me about it. I've never actually seen that episode of The Simpsons.
Oh my god! No. See, yeah, I think it would be kind of amazing to watch, like you even, just to watch that one episode completely out of context of the time period, because
I've seen clips and things, and I know about the money. I can't think what the money in it has, like a special name. Is it like? Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, we do a Brendan reacts to Australian Simpsons.
That would kind of be amazing to look at, because to me that episode is hilarious. But I wonder if to Australians that episode is like just flat out offensive. You know, like there's a Foster's joke, and there's, you know, the Knifey Spoony thing. There's kicking people in the butt. There's your president's just like, you know, naked in a lake down the street. There's all of these horrible kind of things that just make.
I think mostly we like that sort of stuff. Like we kind of like to play up to it. Like again, the Steve Irwin, the Crocodile Dundee stuff. Like most of us are nothing like that. But we kind of like that people think that we are, I think, a little bit. And I think we kind of enjoy it. Takes a fair bit to offend most of us. And I think that probably for the most part, we just think it's funny. Like, we really enjoy that stuff. I remember there was a South Park episode with like a Steve Irwin type character, and he was jumping around putting his thumb up crocodiles' buttholes. That was the whole joke over and over again. And like, I think it's pretty funny. I don't even think Steve Irwin did that, but it was still funny.
It was just, well, that's the thing with South Park. They get as flat out offensive as they're allowed to put on television. And whoever gets mad sucks to be them. Whoever laughs, yay. You know, it's that kind of thing. So South Park surprisingly gets away with everything because people know their whole point is to offend. But yeah, that's just weird.
A little bit backwards here as well. Like, and again, I think we're okay with admitting that. Like, we're not by any what's the way to put it? We're not going out of our way to offend people, but Australian comedians and things like that often maybe offend people because our sense of humor is maybe 10 years early, like behind you guys, and we're not quite as evolved sometimes as other parts of the world. But like again, I think we're okay with admitting that.
Is it because you guys are trapped on an island?
I think so. Yeah, me and Sally have been watching an Australian TV show from the 90s, and I think it kind of looks like an American TV show from the 80s. It's very similar.
Nice. Okay. I mean, I'm so curious as to what is the name of the show?
Heartbreak High. It's on Netflix.
God. I gotta look that one up. Heartbreak High. It is.
It's something. Yeah.
But it's so funny, like when you go back and look at like old shows you used to watch and you used to like, and things like that, and then you look at it again with like your adult eyes, quote unquote, and you're just like, that's offensive. What is that guy wearing? What is going on with this storyline? This is weird. Why is this so depressing? Like, these are the things that go through my mind all the time.
Yeah, Heartbreak High, I guess the closest thing. So you guys have Degrassi. Mm-hmm. So we had Degrassi as well. But Heartbreak High is very sort of Australia's version of that. So it was to be a bit cutting edge, but it's quite quaint with today's eyes.
Yeah,
but it was at the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing with Degrassi. Like, even if you go back and look at episodes of Degrassi, you're just like, yeah, it's a little bit progressive and stuff, but compared to what's on TV right now, this is just nothing. That's butter on toast. What are you talking about? But I think that's with a lot of things. Like, I think most things, when you look back on it now, you're like, really? This was offensive? Why was this offensive? But you also couldn't get away with things before.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Segue.
One of the things I was allowed to watch while not being allowed to watch The Simpsons, I might add, was Ghostbusters. So.
I was watching it and it's aged kind of okay, except the more I look at it, the more I realize like what an asshole Venkman is. Like, not in just like a funny way, but I'm just like, no, you're just a dick.
So something that I thought of, like, and this is the first time, so I watched this movie a lot. Like, I've seen this movie so many times, but I hadn't watched it for maybe a couple of years, and I watched it yesterday, and it really came across to me like he's kind of a creep. Like the way he acts towards Dana, I hadn't really noticed quite how creepy he was until this one, and he kind of pulls it off because he's also sort of charming, but he's a bit creepy. I think it's in. I might be jumping ahead a little bit. I think it's actually in the second movie, but there's No, it's the first movie. So she's coming out of the orchestra with the guy with nasal problems, and they're like coming out, and he's just there, like he's just arrived at her work, without announcing anything, and she walks out. So the first thing she sees is him kind of doing this weird jump. So he's doing this like weird jump down the street, and he's just there at her work. Like that wouldn't be okay.
No, that would not be okay. We have a professional agreement. You showing up at my work is not acceptable. No.
Yeah, if my exterminator like turned up at my work and the first thing I do is I open the door, you see him kind of doing a playful hop down the street, I'm getting a new exterminator. I'm not. Sorry,
that actually kind of reminded me of the Cable Guy, like the Jim Carrey movie. Because I'm like, it's that same level of intensity, but like you're saying, a little bit more charming, not so like, creepy and excessive. Actually, no, it is kind of excessive still. Not so creepy. It's
with a different actor, it would be so creepy.
Oh yeah.
Like he pulls it off. And I think there is that, it was a different time and there's that aspect as well. But a different actor would have played it differently. And I think it would have been pretty creepy. But I still really like him. But it just, I had never noticed that aspect of his character before, I suppose. Like the constantly trying to chat her up. Like nonstop. The whole movie, that's all he's doing.
Yeah, from the moment he meets her, he is just inappropriate.
Yeah.
That's what I kept, every time he did anything, I was like, that's inappropriate. That's inappropriate. That's inappropriate. Like, that's all that kept going through my head, even though at the same time I was laughing. I was just like, that's just wrong. I don't.
Well, the first time we meet him is the experiment scene with the guy chewing his gum with the big hair and the blonde girl.
Yeah.
And basically he's cheating the experiment to chat up this girl, while also kind of humiliating this other guy. And it is funny. But again, like, I think, again, it's maybe our modern sensitivities. He's like a teacher or like he works at like the university and she's like a young girl. And basically he's trying to convince her that she's psychic so that probably they can sleep together. Like that's his his whole.
One of my notes is Venkman flirting with the co-ed has aged horribly. It's really gross. That's my note on that whole sequence, and
it's still funny though. Like it's a funny sequence, but you need to remember it for the time I think that it was in. Versus like if that was in a new movie, it wouldn't be funny. Like it would be. Yeah,
like that's in bad taste. Like that's not acceptable. Like she's reporting him to like the head of faculty or something. Maybe that's the real reason why they got fired and lost their funding. It had nothing to do with them not believing in ghosts or whatever. It was just like, you've harassed enough co-eds, get out. Like that was.
They make it pretty clear he was bad at his job. Like when they're firing him, they're in no uncertain terms. They're telling him like, you were really terrible. Like you haven't done anything since you've been here. I think I realized that before. Like I knew it, I suppose, but I paid maybe more attention because I knew we would be talking about it. And I was like, wow, he's like, he doesn't have a lot going on. Like Yeah,
I think this is one thing I love and I hate about doing this podcast is that because I want to take notes and, see all of the nuances within film and what certain scenes add to, like the storytelling of or character building of the overall story. So I sit there and then I start pulling out scenes like this where before I didn't pay enough attention to it. So it's just like, oh, it's just being funny. It's charming, whatever. But now everything seems slightly creepy and slightly wrong. And you're just like, that is just horrible. Like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, who sat and wrote this and thought that would be a funny thing? What's their mentality to think that it's okay for him to hit that hard on a co-ed in the first place, right? And I know it was written by, I think it was written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, right? Yeah, and the funny thing is that they didn't give themselves that character. They're just like, nah, that has to be somebody else who's got to do it. I don't know what that whole dynamic has to do with anything, but it was very confusing. I just want to say it was very confusing to me.
Yeah, I and maybe that is part of we were talking about, like Bill Murray can pull it off, maybe those other guys weren't actually convinced that they could pull that off in a way that would be funny and not just super creepy. Like, and again, you see a little bit of that though with Egon in the second one. He is kind of the hot science guy. Like when they're doing the experiment on the kid with the puppy and stuff, and like all of his staff are kind of like looking at him, and I don't know that like everyone just seems to really like him, and he seems a lot more charming, whereas he's more kind of a weirdo in the first movie.
Yeah, I think in the first movie, because they only show him interacting with the two, like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. Those are the only people he interacts with, right? And so he is just full on like weird, and I have no social graces in any way, shape, or form. And by the second movie, it's been 5 years. He's been thrust in the spotlight. He's been given a grant to do some kind of scientific work, and that's what he's doing. And I think the people around him are more, quote unquote, normal or average, but they also look up to him in great esteem, and that's given him like a certain level of confidence. And that's why, yeah.
At the beginning of Ghostbusters 2, he's the most successful. Maybe we'll talk more about 2 as we go, but certainly when we come back to 2, he seems like the one that's had some success following Ghostbusters, whereas the other guys maybe not so much. Certainly not in the same way.
No, definitely not in the same way. I mean, Bill Murray, he's a host of a TV show that people make fun of. And then the other two are just like, we can't give this up. We're Ghostbusters. Let's do kids' birthday parties. And I was just like, I was sitting there watching that. I'm like, isn't that like the Sham Wow guy all of a sudden, doing birthday parties? Like, that's just weird. Right?
And it's cool. Yeah. And it's cool. It's because the scene with Ivan Reitman's son, kind of telling them that they're full of shit. Like, I think that's pretty cool that then now he's directing the new Ghostbusters movie, which is really cool. But that scene, have you seen the animated Ninja Turtles movie from like a few years ago now?
Yeah, TMNT, from like 2010 or something.
Yeah, so Michelangelo has the exact same thing, I realized, as I was watching Ghostbusters 2. So he does birthday parties, and he's got like the big head, like a big fake Ninja Turtle head over his actual Ninja Turtle head. But it's kind of the same thing, like the turtles are broken up, and he's gone to doing birthday parties. It's a very similar scene to Ghostbusters 2. I hadn't clicked on it until when I was rewatching them.
Really? Well, I have to admit, like that TMNT movie, I've only seen it once. And I remember watching it thinking to myself, that's actually a really good movie. And then, but it did really bad in like the theater and stuff. And they've never really had it on TV very often. It's kind of not easy to find places. And I remember very little about the story, to be honest.
No, it didn't have a lot of, like, especially with Turtles, which is like a big thing, it didn't have a lot of cultural significance. Like that movie kind of came out and then it immediately left. Even though, like, much better than, say, the third movie was. But it was, but yeah, for whatever reason, it didn't catch on. Maybe it was a bit too early to bring them back, kind of thing. But yeah.
Agreed. But, or maybe it was just didn't have the right sort of advertising for it. Because I find that happens sometimes where, there's money to make the film, but there's no money to advertise the film. And then so the film comes out, you see like a couple of posters here and there, you see a trailer, and that's it. And then you hear nothing else about the movie. And nobody watches it because they're just like, I don't know anything about it. So I'll wait for it to come on TV. And then because it flops so hard, it's not on TV that much either. So still nobody watches it. And then you just have to wait for the momentum to build up around it, and then it comes back.
The movies came out at like the same time, whether it was kind of overshadowed by something else. I don't know.
It could have been that too.
Pretty good. I haven't watched it for a long time either. I just really remember because at the start of that movie, the Ninja Turtles are also broken up, and that Michelangelo has a job working for some sort of party company or pizza company. I'm not really sure, but he does kids' birthday parties, and he's basically it's the same thing as Ghostbusters 2. So I guess that's what you do if you're team of 4 heroes breaks up, one of you at least needs to go and do birthday parties.
Yes, somebody has to do a birthday party, or else what's the point, right?
And it's a horrible job. So I actually did birthday parties at. So we have a chain here called Hungry Jack's, but it's like Burger King for you guys.
Okay.
And I did the birthday parties there for a while, and it is a horrible job. It's not. It's much worse than working at a fast food shop. It pays a little bit better, but it's not fun.
So what do you mean you did the birthday parties? Like, did you have to dress up in a suit, or did you just like walk over and sing happy birthday?
A clown or a pirate most often, a clown or a pirate, and so kids would come. So I guess it's a thing at Burger King there. I don't know, maybe not. There's like a birthday party room, and kids come, and so we have that at lots of churches. So McDonald's and stuff have it here as well. It's like a birthday party room. It's I think a fairly affordable birthday party experience for parents.
Mm-hmm.
And what usually happens is there's supposed to be parents there, but they all just drop off their kids and leave. So you're like this. So I think I was maybe like 19 or 20 when I was doing it. And all of a sudden 30 kids turn up, and oftentimes a lot of the parents disappear. You have very little support from the rest of the chain that you work for. In fact, they kind of seem to hate that you exist because you cause like a lot of mess and a lot of work, like just preparing the food and stuff for kids. One time they ran out of like the party bags that they give out, so they went to the local market and bought party bags, and they bought horns that make a noise. So like these horns that kids were blowing. And we actually got complaints from the drive-through of how loud the birthday party was as people walked past. I was like, you give kids horns, you can't take them back now. Like this is what you get. I only did it for maybe, I think about 3 months, and had a really bad birthday party experience where I turned up and like there was no cake, and there was like none of the things that were supposed to be ready to do the birthday party were there. And basically at the end of the shift, I just left. And actually, I don't think I charged the people for the birthday party because it was so bad. Like, it was really bad. And that was like the one thing that I had to use the registers for, was to like charge them. And I'm pretty sure I was like, that was really bad, guys. You could just go. And then I got my bag and I left, and I never returned. It was a really horrible job. So I feel for the Ghostbusters at the beginning of 2 when they were doing the birthday party. It's a thankless job.
Yeah, your PTSD kicks in, and you're like, you just have flashbacks. You're like, no, not again.
Yes, very bad job. I'm trying to think of something positive to say about it. I think it's good that there's a low price birthday party option out there for parents. That's good. But that's probably as positive as I could get about it.
I mean, did the kids have fun maybe torturing you?
Oh yeah, I think the kids had a lot of fun. Like, they have a good playground and stuff at the so mostly they just ran around in there screaming, and I tried to wrangle them into some sort of a game, and make sure they ate food before they went home. That was basically my job. It was just like a babysitter at a fast food place.
Yeah. Okay, that does sound like torture. I'm glad you survived your short-lived experience. And now you can say, like, I have something in common with Ghostbusters, so you're cool.
I do. I hadn't, and again, this hadn't really clicked until actually I'd sort of maybe blocked this part of my life out until we started talking about running birthday parties, and I was like, oh yeah, I did that for a while. Yeah, no.
See, these movies, they bring things back. They bring things out of you. It's good.
They do.
Yeah. While I was watching the first movie too, I didn't realize that Stay Puft Marshmallows have other appearances within the film. And then
I knew there was one, but there's more. Like, when I was watching it, I realized how many. There were a lot more than I thought too.
Yeah.
I knew the bag on the counter. When I think they go look at her fridge after they've seen the ghost in it.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I had never realized, like I remembered her pulling out the eggs and pulling out like bread, but I didn't remember she pulled out marshmallows out of her bag and it was like Stay Puffed, you know?
Yeah,
And during her whole paranormal experience, it's just on the counter and you can see it. And then when they
yeah.
go back, it's also there as well. And I was just like, hey, the marshmallows make it, oh, that's like foreshadowing for later. That's amazing. Or just
And there's
really
like a
good
billboard.
endorsements, whichever.
Do you see the billboard as well?
There was a
There's a Stay
billboard?
Puft. Yeah, there's like a Stay Puft billboard. It's old. It's like really old and kind of worn out looking.
Mhm.
I'd never ever noticed it before. And like I've seen this movie so many times, and I never ever noticed it until this time around. So there's
See
like a Stay Puft billboard.
Yeah,
But
see,
like
they were, like, dropping hints throughout. My
yeah,
god.
yeah. So it's pretty cool because I guess I thought that Stay Puft as a kid, I think I thought that Stay Puft was like a brand, like an actual brand. I don't
Mhm.
think I realized that it was made up. I just assumed it was like, and maybe this isn't so much of a thing in Canada, but like in Australia, you'll often watch movies that have brands that don't exist here. So like you watch ET and he's got the Reese's Pieces. That we don't have Reese's Pieces here.
Mhm.
So I just thought they were like I just assumed that that's a brand that we don't have in Australia. Um, but yeah, we get that a lot with movies. So it turns out it's just made up.
Stay Puft Marshmallows were made up?
Yeah, I think so. I guess for the movie, as far as I know, you can
Interesting.
buy them now. They have them every now and again.
Yeah, they do because that's the thing. That's why I'm confused is that they're like fake. Because for a couple years ago, I had a Secret Santa with a friend who I knew was obsessed with Ghostbusters. Right? He's really into animation, and he always used to talk about like Ghostbusters compared to the real Ghostbusters plus the show, and he loved Venkman and all this kind of stuff. Right? And so what I did for our Secret Santa was I was at like Fan Expo or something or a comic book convention, and they had a stall that was selling pop figures and Stay Puffed marshmallows. And I bought him like a figure and the marshmallows to go along with it. And he was like, ah, you know, and I've always like said to myself, I'm like, oh shit, I should have bought some marshmallows for myself too. And I never did. But whatever, it's
So
fine.
I had a bag, and so here they came out with the release of the more recent Ghostbusters movie, like
Mm-hmm.
so the remake one, um, and they came out for that, but they looked just like they weren't based on the remake. They were based on clearly based on the original films, but
Mm-hmm.
they came out when the remake came out. And I had a bag in my like Ghostbusters collection for probably it must have been like 2 years. And then I was like, these are not going to last much longer. And I started to like think about what a bag of marshmallows sitting next to all like my toys and things might look like in another year. So I
Yeah.
ended up eating them. But yeah, they definitely had them, but I think they're more of a promotional item.
Thing. Yeah, yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, I'd never thought about it. I just always assumed they were a brand of marshmallows that was real and they got like paid to throw it in there. Like I just didn't really ever think about it. And then when I found it and bought some, I was like, oh, see, they are real. I just thought they were like American and we didn't get them in Canada, same way you did. And I never really thought about it. But yeah, they were just made up for the movie. All right.
There were a lot of and so I again I assume this is the same everywhere. Like I think Ghostbusters was a pretty big movie when it came out, but there were so many promotional items here when that movie first came out. Like, um, we had things. So it was like Ghost in a Can. It was like a Coke
Okay.
promotion.
Hmm.
The guys didn't have that, or maybe you
Not
didn't.
that I remember.
I was, and I mean, I was hugely into the, especially when this movie came out. But there was the promotional cans, and they were called uh, Ghost in a Can. Basically, it was Coke,
Hmm.
and apparently, when you open the can, a ghost could come out of the can. It was just a can of Coke, but I was super excited for it when I was a kid, and like there was a kind
Wait,
of pop.
so sorry, when did Ghostbusters come out in Australia?
So I'm thinking when I think about this, that this might have been Ghostbusters 2 stuff,
Oh, okay.
or it could have been the video release of Ghostbusters. So I'm not sure what it's like there, but we would get movies like nowadays we get them at the same time, but in the past we got them a fair bit later
Hmm.
than North America, and I'm not sure exactly when it came out here. I don't remember it coming out at the cinema because I would have been too young, but I do remember. So one of my main memories of Ghostbusters, and I don't know if it was I was already watching Real Ghostbusters, the cartoon, or whether this came first. They feel like they were the same time in my brain. But the TV release of Ghostbusters was like a big deal. So it was going to be like shown on TV for the first time. Like you've got to, I don't know again what things were like in Canada this time. We had like 4 channels here. There were like 4 TV channels in Australia at this point in sort of the probably late 80s, I guess. And Ghostbusters was going to be on, and it was a big deal. And it was on too late for me to stay up and watch it because I was like 4, 3 or 4 years old, and like super into Ghostbusters, but I hadn't actually seen the movie at this point. But and I really, really wanted to watch it. And I remember me and my dad going out to try and find a blank videotape so that we could record it off the TV because we didn't have any blank tapes. And so we went looking for one, and we couldn't get one anywhere. And we ended up going to like a local video store, and they're like, "We don't have any blank tapes. We actually have a copy of Ghostbusters on video if you want to buy it." I have no idea how much it costs. I feel like it was probably expensive because people didn't really buy a lot of videos back then, at least not here. And so I had my own copy of Ghostbusters on videotape, like a proper one from like the video store. And I used to watch it every day. Like, so I would stay with my grandparents because my parents both worked, and they would look after me during the day because this was before I was at school. And I would watch Ghostbusters pretty much every day. And I would watch it with my nan, my grandma, and I would watch the opening scene with the library. And every time it got up to that bit, I would say to my nan, "Hey, do you want me to sit with you for this bit? Because I know you get really scared during this scene." And she'd be like, "Yeah, I do get really, really scared during this scene, Brennan. Thanks. You can sit with me for this bit." And we'd watch the library scene. I'd make sure she didn't get too scared. And then I'd watch the rest of the movie by myself. That library ghost scene, I think maybe there's some trauma attached to that. For my grandma, not for me. But I always made sure she was okay.
Yeah. You were such a thoughtful child. Yes.
Yes, yeah. That scene, even now, it was a little scary when I watched it. Like, and because I hadn't seen it in a while, I kept expecting it to happen earlier than it did. Because in my mind, that bit where she kind of jumps out is right at the beginning, but it's actually a little ways in. And I was just kind of like waiting for it. And then once it came, I was like, "Oh, that wasn't that scary." And then I just enjoyed the film from there. But
so to be honest, I did not see either of these movies in the theater. I was too young. And also when this first movie came out, I did not live in Canada. I lived in Trinidad at the time.
of course, yeah.
Yeah, so Trinidad is very much like Australia, where they had like two, 3 channels. One channel was completely dedicated to Trinidad things and Trinidad news and local whatever, and then like the other 2 channels was like a random array of international things in different languages and all sorts of stuff. So it was very weird. So I actually have no idea what the hype was when these movies came out. But I do remember watching like the Real Ghostbusters and the Ghostbusters like cartoons, and then watching the movies. So like to me, like you, all of them seem to be from the same exact time period. Like it's just everything happened at once, where obviously it did not. Like these are like spread out over a good like 10 years or something with the cartoons and everything.
Yeah, and I expect that maybe Ghostbusters 2 is coming out. Maybe that's why the first one was on TV or something even. Like, so there may have been... Because to me, both those movies kind of existed at the same time. From my point of view. And I think you do that when you're little too. Like, all of your stuff kind of gets crammed together in your memory. But certainly the Ghostbusters cartoon, I watched that like religiously. But I have no idea whether I saw the cartoon or the movie first. I couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell you either. One thing I do remember though, oh my God, what's the name of that gas station that doesn't exist anymore here? Sonico. Well, I think it does exist, but in very like small rural towns and stuff. But I remember I think it was Sonico Stations. They were having a Ghostbusters promotion or something. I don't remember why. I don't remember what it was connected to. But I think it was one of the cartoons, because when you filled up your gas tank, you got like a glass that had like Ghostbuster stuff on it, and you can get one with like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like the Ghostbusters logo, and the Ecto-1 on it and stuff. And at one point in time, we did have 4, but I know for a fact I have one left, and I believe it's the one that has the car on it. And the reason why I can't verify that is because it's at my mom's place in her china cabinet, so it stays nice and safe and untouched. So it's taken
Probably
care
a collector's item now. Like, because I feel like those glasses, they must have just got broken over here. So I didn't have Ghostbusters glasses, but certainly we had that with like Batman.
of.
Like I remember, especially Batman Returns. Like we had all the glasses from that, and they must have all broken over the years. Like because we used them like heavily, like they were like our glasses. So I'm sure that there must be some value to, because it's like what, getting to be a 40-year-old movie,
It
the
is.
first one. So yeah. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, there was so much merchandise stuff here. So there was the ghost cans. There was like popcorn that was branded with it here. Yeah, so much. It's really interesting because I hadn't clicked that you wouldn't have been in Canada when it came out. It'd be interesting to know what it was like there as well. We might have to regroup with a
With that, exactly. Like, I
yeah.
mean, I think the first movie I ever saw in a theater was like Superman 2 or something. I remember because we had like one room theater houses in Trinidad at the time. And so like whatever movie was playing was the movie you were watching.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know if this like is completely made up by my brain or something, but I remember it being a rainy day, us walking in, sitting down, watching Superman, and then leaving. And I was like, oh, Superman. But I don't even remember watching the whole movie. I just remember going in, seeing a screen, lights happening, whatever, people all around. And it's like, I was paying attention to the people rather than the movie, because this is an experience I've never had before.
Yeah.
And then, I love going to the theater. Like, this pandemic has kept me from going to a movie theater, and it's so sad. I love going to the theater. People think
We
I'm
can
crazy.
go again here, but there's no movies on. So it's like it's almost worse. I
Yeah.
like I could go, but there's nothing to see. Like there's like I'm really excited for King Kong versus Godzilla. It looks like it's actually gonna come out.
Yeah.
And like just to go to a movie will
Yeah.
be like, we actually went and saw Wonder Woman 84 at the cinema. And I actually don't know that it was that great of a movie, but I loved it. Like in my mind, it was so fun. Like it was so good. And just to see a movie again at a cinema, like with not a lot of people, but with like other people, it was exciting.
Yeah. In the last year, I've only seen 2 movies in the theater, and this was in, I want to say, no, it wasn't cold yet. So I'm going to say it was like October or September of last year. And I saw Tenant and what's that X-Men / not X-Men movie?
Oh
New Mutants.
yeah,
And I was so disappointed in both of these movies. I'm like, I could have died, and those are the last 2 movies I could have seen. That's depressing, is all I
yeah.
remember thinking. And but now, like, me and my friend are really excited for Godzilla, and we're just like, I hope the theater opens up for Godzilla. I hope the theater opens up for Godzilla, is all that we're saying. I'm like, that's my pact. I'm like, if we go to the theater, we're seeing Godzilla. That's it.
No, so me and my wife Sally, we saw Wonder Woman 84 and came out, and we were both like, "Oh, that was really good! Like, I really enjoyed that." And I've since heard like people's criticisms of the film, and they're all correct. Like, and I don't even disagree with them.
Mhm.
But damn, it just felt like such a good movie. Like at the time, it just felt like so good to see it. And we also have like a really young son, so we weren't getting out to the cinema right before COVID much either. So it felt like forever since we had both been to like together, and yeah, it was such a good experience. Even if maybe the movie in hindsight wasn't as good as I imagined it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to take a little side step here because you brought up Wonder Woman, which brings up DC, which brings up the Snyder Cut.
I
Have you
was
watched
wondering.
it yet?
Yeah, I did. I did watch it the other day. It took me, I think, 3 sittings to get all the way through it because
Mm-hmm.
it's a fairly long movie.
It's 4 hours and 2 minutes.
Yeah, and it was. So let me just explain what the experience of watching it is like here as well.
Okay.
So in Australia, there's we have streaming services, right? So Netflix and all the ones that you have. We also have some like Australian streaming services, so we have one called Stan, which is really good. It has a lot of international content, a lot of Australian content, and then we have like our cable providers, and they're kind of in the background dying a slow death, but they continue to get spend money to get like big things. And they have their own streaming service called Binge, and it is awful. It's so bad. And they got the exclusive rights for the Snyder Cut. And I got a free subscription to it through my phone, so I didn't have to pay to see it. But I could not get it running across 2 TVs, a PlayStation, on anything. So I ended up having to watch it on my laptop.
Oh.
It was the only thing that I could get it to stream on. And the quality was really not that good. And because of that weird ratio that he decided to shoot it in, it was like watching it in a tiny box. So it wasn't exactly the most cinematic of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I was kind of pleasantly surprised. I liked it more than I thought I was going to. I didn't like Man of Steel, especially, and I didn't like Batman vs. Superman. So I like this more than those. It's not my favorite, but it could have been an hour shorter, but it was okay.
I agree with everything that you have just said. Well, except for the streaming service stuff. I don't know what that stuff's about. I'm kidding. Yeah. Canada has their own streaming issues and stuff, but the service they have it on here is I could get it on my TV and it was fine. And I sat down to watch it at like 6 p.m. And of course, at like 10 p.m., I was just like, why was this movie so long? Like I felt so tired and so drained because it was just so much stuff. But a lot of the stuff in there seemed very random, but not in a good way. Like they didn't do any proper like character building, like I didn't care about Cyborg by the end of the movie. I did not care about the Flash throughout the movie. Like he wasn't funny. He was a little bit funny, but he wasn't particularly charming. And like the persona that they're trying to give him just wasn't really working. And I was just like, why am I supposed to care about any of these people or their whatever, destructive history that they have, like when the father died, I was like, okay, he died, whatever. It wasn't.
Yeah, and that scene, I just remembered that scene. It made me so mad. Like, why did he have to be in that box?
He didn't have to be in the box. He could have literally just taken the 2 steps forward, closed the door, and pressed the button, but he didn't.
Yeah, that was awful.
I think the problem is there's so many scenes like that in the movie that it was getting me angry. Like even the part like on Themyscira where the box is coming alive and she's like running out of the temple and they're like bashing on the thing to like seal it or whatever, but there's a giant hole at the top of the building, and so of course if it tumbles down then it's easier to get to the hole for them to come out. It's not like it's a sealed box, so none of that was necessary, and it just seemed like a waste of time and energy. And it's like I don't know what you're doing.
It went for a long time, and I think the character stuff you talked about, it was better than the other version, but it wasn't, like you say, the cyborg stuff, it didn't even feel like the editing was weird. Like it would just all of a sudden cut to a story like about his past. It didn't always feel very fluid. It just kind of would just cut to, okay, now we're going to watch half an hour about Cyborg's life. And then we're back to the movie again. And it
seemed like a movie, a different movie made and like intercut into it. If you know what I mean. Yeah.
And there were bits where you could tell they switched things around, like the order of things, even just weird stuff. Like there's a shot where Batman kicks a guy off a like a boardwalk, and then it cuts to the shot of him looking down, and then in the next shot he's doing that right next to where like this massive fight is going on with Steppenwolf. And like Batman's a normal guy, like why is he taking the time to look off the bridge? But what I think had actually happened is they had just used that shot to link the two shots together. I don't think that was probably the original plan, and it looked really weird because it looked like Batman had kicked this guy off, and then he takes the time to go and check out what's going on. Meanwhile, there's like a nuclear bomb going off next to him. Like why would he do that? And it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't really look like that's what it was supposed to be. And there were lots of things like that. But I mean, overall, I think it was certainly, I think, Snyder's best DC movie, in my opinion. It was the best.
Begrudgingly, I have to agree, but also the bar is really low. So take
and
it
I think
as
I had pretty low expectations, which probably helps as well because I know what those movies are now, so I'm not going to be disappointed like I was with Man of Steel. I'm not going to let him do that to me again. I know what he's making, and but maybe it's contentious to say I think the Joss Whedon Justice League is not a good movie either.
Nope.
But there were a couple of bits like I did kind of like that more optimistic Superman that we got at the end of that film, and I did. I know it's a bit contentious with the circumstances around the shooting of it, but I actually quite enjoyed the booyah moment with Cyborg in that movie. I thought it was like a moment of levity in his really, because he's a really kind of emo character in that movie. So it was nice for him to have that moment. For me, even though I know that there's a lot of contention around the shooting of that movie and specifically that line, but yeah, to me, there were aspects of that movie that were better, even though that the movie is not better, but there were aspects of that movie that I thought they did a little better.
Yeah, there's actual story building without character building, which it seems like an odd thing to happen, but it's very true. And like, there's so many scenes of just like, look how cool they are scenes, like, like Batman standing in the wind and his cape is flapping and there's like 6 minutes of him just standing there and you're just like, is this all we're looking at right now? Like, can we keep this going?
The bit where the lady starts singing as Aquaman goes into the water.
Oh my God.
And then they just like, that was okay. Like, I get what he was doing, but it just kept going. Like, they just kept singing. And I was like, he's gone. Like he's in a way, he can't hear you no more. Like let him go.
For some reason, she had to go pick up his sweater, and we needed to see her still singing, holding his sweater. I don't know. I didn't get it. I agreed. Like that scene, I was just like, why? He's gone. You look at her, she's singing. You look back, and there's like the little bubbles in the thing, which means he's gone. That's the end of the scene. Just go, like and that's why it's so long.
So with his I'll say sweater. So your audience understands. I would say jumper. But with this jumper, she takes it right, and every time he comes in, like, so there's the bit where he like rescues a guy. He goes into the bar and he's wearing like a tank top when he rescues him. But then he leaves. He takes the tank top off and jumps back into the water. Like during the time he rescued that person, where did he go to get the tank top to wear in? Like, because he literally only wore it into the bar. I guess no shirt, no service. Took it, went in, dropped the guy off. All right, got the whiskey. I'm out. Take my shirt off again. Take off. Like, I think you can skip that step.
Yeah. You would think so. I mean, with the tattooing on him, it's practically a shirt anyway, so you're fine.
Looks awesome. He doesn't need to wear the tank top. Like,
I mean, the tank top was pretty much strings. Like, it wasn't even like a real shirt. What was the point?
Like, I imagine that on the jetty, there's like a box full of clothes that the townsfolk leave there for when Aquaman gets out of the water. And he always wears pants in the water. Like, why does he need to take the shirt off anyway? Like, he can... Maybe we're looking at it a bit too closely.
Look, the thing is that when a movie is either like bad or at the cusp of being good, you end up analyzing it more than just a flat out bad movie or a flat out good movie, because you're just like, if you just change these tiny things, like how is it that it's so clear that these tiny things aren't necessary? That's the thing that made it bad, and it would have been so good. Whereas like if it's like a bad, like a flat out bad movie, you're like, this whole thing is bad, just burn it. So you don't have to analyze it. Or if it's good, you're just like, everything's amazing, and you're just like, blinded by how good it is. So you don't analyze anything. But when it's on that cusp of quality, you're just like,
and I want to enjoy it. Like I want to. I love those characters. I really want to enjoy it. And like I say, for the most part, I think this one I did. Like it was certainly a more enjoyable experience than the last couple had been. Mm-hmm. But like I'll watch Shazam or Wonder Woman 84 over those anytime. Like to me, they're just more fun. And that's what I want from my superheroes. I want.
I have not watched Wonder Woman 84 as yet, but I did watch Shazam, and I didn't mind it at all. Like I thought it was decent. It was fine. Like it's not up in the echelons of greatness of comic book films or anything. But it's like, you know what? It's on TV. I'll give it a watch. I've already watched it more than once, and if it was shitty, I would not have watched it more than once. So,
exactly.
But I can't say that because I definitely watched Man of Steel twice to verify my hatred of it. And
again, I think before I saw Batman versus Superman, I watched it again. I'm like, maybe I would gave it, like, maybe I wasn't fair. And I think maybe I disliked it more the second time because I knew what was coming. And it's just, it doesn't, to me, and I know a lot of people really love that movie, and I don't want to shit on it. Like, I get why they like it too. Like, I understand what people get about, what people enjoy about it. But to me, it just doesn't feel like Superman, and it just doesn't.
It doesn't.
Feel, the character that I love, and I think that's okay. Like, it's fine to take him as like an Elseworld Superman, or like I don't think that all movies need to be exactly like the comics, but because we haven't had like a really good Superman movie in such a long time, it would just be nice to have a more traditional Superman, and then we can do those spin-offy other styles of Superman. We can do our Injustice Superman. We can do our evil Superman. Mm-hmm. But I just like a nice Superman.
I think that was my biggest problem with it as well, is the fact that like watching that movie, I'm like, whoever made this movie doesn't know who Superman is. Yeah. And also the portrayal of Superman in it, you lose that, what do you call it? Suspension of disbelief. Because Superman with his glasses on and with his glasses off is exactly the same character both ways. Whereas, you have to have a distinction between Clark Kent and Superman to make that stupid glasses on, glasses off thing work. And it's nonsense. And it just made me mad watching it because Superman isn't cocky. Superman isn't a dick. Superman isn't like, I'm better than everybody else. That's not his shtick. And that's what they presented. And like, you can have a goody two shoes character whose world is gray. You can do that. I think the problem is they made the world gray and they made Superman gray. And you're like, that's not who Superman is.
And I hate to compare it to the competition of Marvel, but like I think movies like Winter Soldier and Civil War show you can have that kind of hokey hero exist in that kind of more realistic world.
Yeah. I was trying very hard not to say it. Yeah. But that Captain America movie where he is very much black and white and a Boy Scout in a world that is very gray, where there's all differing lines that he goes in and out and comes back, and it works because they keep the fundamental of the character but change the world around him, compared to this movie where they're like, no, we're going to change the world and we're going to change him. And you're just like, that's not Superman then. Like, you just you can't do it.
The bit that lost me in that movie, like, I didn't mind it. And then the bit that lost me was when he let his dad die. And it was just like, Superman, I guess my Superman wouldn't do that. Like, and he doesn't care about protecting his identity at the risk of other people getting hurt. Like, he'll give away his identity every single time if that's the only way to save someone. It doesn't mean that he won't try and keep it secret. He certainly will. But if if he thought that the only way he could save someone was to give his identity away, I think he does it in a second without even thinking.
True.
Yeah, even in shows that maybe weren't always the best, but things like Smallville, where I remember in the very first episode, he saves the bus full of kids, and his dad's like, "You got to stop doing this. Like, people are going to work out who you are." And he's like, "No, I can't just let a bus full of kids die." And of all the people in your life, like your adopted father, adopted mother, like, how do you just let that happen? Like, it's not even that he doesn't even not like him. Like, he loves his dad, and to let that happen, to me, it just didn't ring true. It didn't feel like something. I couldn't get behind that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I sat there in the theater watching it, go like confused, but I was watching with one of my girlfriends who's not a giant nerd like me, and I was looking at her like, "What the hell?" And she's like, "Oh." I'm like, I need to yell about this, and I just couldn't do it, you know? And I was just like, that makes absolutely no sense in any way, shape, or form. And it was just so frustrating. And the thing is, Henry Cavill is not a bad actor. Like, I think
if he was, could do it.
Yeah, he can do it. I think he has the look and he has the stance for it. And as Superman, I think he's great, but I think his direction in the film wasn't to be a clumsy reporter. It was to be like, no, you're a tough guy still. Boom, get to work. Like, and it's just like, no, that's not who Superman is. You have to change everything about yourself to switch your character, you know, and if you don't, you've lost everything.
And maybe that's why Justice League was a little better, because there's not a lot of Superman in there.
No.
So maybe that's why I liked it more. I don't know. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the new Lois Superman TV show is pretty good. You should check it out.
I watched the first episode and I really liked it. Yeah. So yeah, I'll have to watch some more. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunately also on the same streaming service as Justice League. So it basically means I'm watching it on my laptop, which again has turned me off watching it, but I will at some point.
Well, hopefully you didn't have to watch Ghostbusters on your computer through that service.
So, no, I didn't. I watched Ghostbusters on DVD.
Yes!
I actually intended to cheat and watch it on Amazon Prime, but it had been removed since I went to watch it. So I had to find out my DVDs, which normally would be super easy. Mm-hmm. They're kind of in genres and then in alphabetical order. So finding a movie is very, very easy. Except that I have a just over 1-year-old who really likes to pull DVDs off of shelves. So none of them are where they are meant to be anymore. So it took me a little while to find Ghostbusters 1 and 2 on DVD. But I found them and I watched them on DVD, and it was a very much better experience. So.
Good. Yeah. It was so fun. Like, I didn't realize, so I have like a box set that came with the two of them. And so I pulled it out and I didn't realize that my thing, it comes with like a little like book. Ooh. And it has like all of the like sketches and stuff from like the original, like what was the Ghost Man gonna be and all that kind of stuff in it, and like lots of concept stuff and storyboarding elements and stuff in it. So it's just like some cool things. So I had fun like watching the movie and just flipping through this book, which I thought was really cool. And they talk about some of the like practical effects they did. There's a lot of wire work and stuff, but the practical effects have aged so well in these movies. Mm. Like, it looks better than some movies that have come out recently until you see like the blue screen stuff, you know, which is very evident in the second movie compared to the first movie. But yeah, all of the visual effects in these movies are fantastic. They're so good.
Yeah, they hold up really well. And kind of on that special feature thing, this is just something that I think is quite interesting about the Ghostbusters DVD, at least the version I have. So I think I have like the first release of it in Australia, basically, on DVD. And it was like some sort of anniversary edition. Give me 2 seconds. I'll grab it. I'll show you. I tell a lie. It's just the collector's edition. It's not an anniversary.
Okay.
So but I believe it was the first release of Ghostbusters on DVD here. And and then Ghostbusters 2, I remember taking quite a long time to come out on DVD. So I didn't buy them at the same time. Like 2 came out maybe even a couple of years later. Mm-hmm. But the special features on the first one are really, really good. And they have this director's commentary. But when you listen to the director's commentary, it's not like a director's commentary on any other DVD I've ever seen, because you actually see the silhouettes of the directors and the producers at the bottom of the screen. And they're not fake. Like, I believe that they film them from behind and then have turned them into silhouettes, because there are like points where they will point at things on screen and talk about them. So as well as the dialogue, you can see like at the bottom of the screen 3 silhouettes. It's like Ivan Reitman and I forget who else is on the commentary. I didn't listen to the commentary this time around. I just checked that it matched my memory, and it's definitely there. And you see, the 3 guys, and they're kind of pointing at things as the movie goes on, and then they'll be talking about them. And it's really good. Like, it's the best DVD commentary I've ever seen. And I don't know why more didn't do that, or if it was just a thing they tried, and they were like, this is a lot more work than just sitting them in a recording studio. But it's really cool. It's worth checking out on your version.
Yeah. So I am notorious for never watching like the commentary or special features on DVDs, because I love the end effect of like the cinematic work. I also find commentary really annoying, because especially if I like a movie, I don't want somebody talking through my movie. I'm just like, I don't care what you're doing, you know? But you saying it that way, where it's like they're watching the movie with you, like they're on screen pointing at stuff, I'd kind of be interested in watching that. And this one does say
science theater type thing. Like it's like, it feels like you're watching it together. It's heaps more immersive than other, even though it's just 3 like tiny guys at the bottom of the screen. It makes a big difference. And I remember seeing it and being really shocked, because I'd never seen anything like that. I'm a bit of a movie nerd, and I not so much these days, but I used to listen to a lot of the commentaries. After I've watched the movie, I would kind of go back and then watch it again with the commentary typically. Yeah. And being shocked that this had this, and that I've never seen it on any other DVD ever. Like, I don't think it's a thing that DVD is doing. It might be exclusive to Ghostbusters. But
I mean, the few that I have tried to look at, it usually lasts like 15 minutes and I turn it off. I've never seen that either. But this actually makes me want to go back and check it out to see if it's actually there or not.
Yeah, it was a little bit of tricky on a modern TV to get it going, because I actually had to switch it to like 4:3 mode. It did give me a warning that I needed to switch it to 4:3 mode to see them. Okay. And I mean, that's not hard to do, but it didn't just automatically work. I had to change it. But it's there, and it was exactly like I remembered. These 3 little guys at the bottom of the screen pointing at stuff. It's cool. Whereas Ghostbusters 2 has like no special features. My version.
This one says it has 2 episodes of the animated series, and that's it.
Yeah, no, there's nothing on mine of Ghostbusters 2 at all.
I wonder why. And this is the real Ghostbusters, not the Ghostbusters. So interesting. I always used to get confused about those like 2 cartoons, like the Ghostbusters and the real Ghostbusters, because Ghostbusters was the one that was weird, where they were like in another world almost, and then the real Ghostbusters were the ones that are just like the movies, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Do you know the reasoning behind that at all?
I remember my friend had told me, and I have completely forgotten. So if you know,
So as far as I understand it, is so there's the Filmation Ghostbusters. So they're the kind of weird Ghostbusters with the gorilla on the team. Which I also was like really into as a kid. I didn't really discriminate too much. It had Ghost in the title, but that was based on like an earlier, maybe from like the 60s or 70s Ghostbusters thing. And when they created the new Ghostbusters, the Ivan Reitman Ghostbusters, they wanted to use that name. And then they found out that this already exists. And so they basically had to license the name from the Filmation Ghostbusters. And so when the movie came out, the Filmation Ghostbusters were like, oh, well, we've got our own Ghostbusters. Let's try and make some money out of this. So they did their own version of the cartoon. And that's why the other cartoon calls itself The Real Ghostbusters, because they had to differentiate themselves from the Filmation one.
Oh yeah, I'm like looking at the poster and I'm like, oh, this is completely different.
Yeah.
And the real Ghostbusters. Well, I always thought it was the same people just in a different place for some reason. That's what's in my brain from
Yeah.
childhood. But I'm
As a
looking
kid,
at it now. It's
yeah, but they're completely different. The main difference being there's like one of the members of a team is a gorilla, with a cowboy hat, and yeah, so that's my understanding is that there was this original Ghostbusters. They licensed the name from them to use that, and then the other Ghostbusters were like, "Hey, we still own the property. We can make our own Ghostbusters cartoon and stuff." So they did that, and both I think came out pretty much the same time.
same time, yeah. One thing I remember is the bad guy in the Ghostbusters had like an evil like organ or something that he would play in the opening
Yeah,
sequence. I don't know why that stuck into my head, but that's it.
they never really felt especially ghosty to me. That version of the Ghostbusters was monsters and stuff,
Yeah.
and whereas I think the movies, especially, this is something they do, and then even more so maybe in the cartoon, is this idea that the Ghostbusters is just like this job that they have, and so it's like an exterminator. So like you get a ghost in your house, you call them, and they come and they fix it. And the cartoon is literally just that. Each episode, oh, there's someone else has got a ghost in their house. Let's call. Who are you going to call? And the Ghostbusters come and help out. That's just their job. It's not particularly glamorous or exciting. It's just they just kill ghosts.
Yeah, and Slimer sort of becomes their like pet / sidekick somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so I guess the thing, and I mean, we haven't looked at the specific movies that closely, but a thing that I always hear with Ghostbusters 2 is people say that it's a lot worse of a film than, like, I hear that a lot, that the second film is a lot worse than the original. And, and one of the main things that I hear is the criticism is they kidified it a lot because the Ghostbusters cartoon was doing so well that they for Ghostbusters 2, like, they removed a lot of the smoking and things like that were in the first movie, and maybe the storyline was a bit more kid friendly. And people just say that it's not as good of a film as Ghostbusters 1. But when I rewatched it, like, I really love Ghostbusters 2.
I was fine with it.
Yeah, I think I almost like it better. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the nostalgia of watching that one as a kid. I like them both a lot. But I like that scene with the birthday party that we were talking about earlier. Like, I remember that scene as like a really iconic Ghostbusters scene. And like the Marshmallow Man is cool, but then the Statue of Liberty coming down the street with the music and everyone cheering is pretty cool too. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I have to admit, I do like the first one better than the second one. And I don't dislike the second movie, but there is a little bit of a pacing problem with the second one because I found myself wandering from it. You know what I mean? Like, where I'm sitting there watching it, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, let me check my phone a minute. Nothing's happening. Oh, something's happening. You know, whereas the first one, I find I didn't have time for my brain to wander as well. Yeah. You know, but I don't find it's kidified because he's got like a cigar half the time for some reason.
Yeah.
And
they drop the cigarettes, but then he has the cigar, and especially at the end when they're spraying the slime. That was the main time that I noticed him with this like big stogie sticking out of his mouth, and he's like spraying everywhere. Yeah.
But like I don't see why, if you like the first Ghostbusters, why you would dislike the second movie. Like, to me, they're on par with each other.
Yeah, and I think I can certainly see the argument that the first movie is better. Like, and probably if I look at it purely from like a technical, critical point of view, I'd probably have to agree that it is better. But I think maybe I still like Ghostbusters 2 more. I don't know what it is about Ghostbusters 2. Like, there's that scene in Ghostbusters 2 with the montage of catching ghosts, and with the jogger. And the jogger's coming along, and they have like the trap set up, and they don't even like catch him with the wands. They just open the trap as he runs past, and he gets sucked in. And like that sequence, the sequence where the slime's coming out, and like the Titanic comes, and the fur coat comes to life and starts running down the street.
I
Like,
love the fur coat coming to life. I do. Every time I see that, I'm like, this is amazing. I love it.
Like, those to me are the iconic Ghostbusters scenes. And it wasn't really till this rewatch that I realized that most of them are in Ghostbusters 2. Like, most of my favorite Ghostbusters scenes are in 2. Again, I love the first film. Don't get me wrong. But just 2 has so many of those moments. I like that Slimer just kind of makes a little bit of guest appearance, and he is maybe a bit more closer to the cartoon. Like, he is a bit more of a friendly, like he's driving the bus that Lewis gets on.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess that is kind of goofy stuff. Like, it probably, especially if you had never seen the cartoon and you went straight from the first movie to the second movie, you might be like, why is Slimer not like a evil ghost anymore?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't care. I love it.
Yeah. Like, and talking about the Titanic coming in, these movies have some really great cameos of people for like half a second, and you're just like,
Yeah.
And it's like everybody from the 80s, right? Like everybody from the 80s that were like known at the time are in these movies. And you're just like, what is happening? Why are you even here for this millisecond of time? And it's great. Because when the Titanic come in, what you see, it's Cheech Marin, I think it is.
So it's, I always get the two, like the Cheech and Chong guys, mixed up as to which one is Cheech and which one is Chong, but it's definitely one of them.
I think it's Cheech. And then 3 seconds later, there's like Ben Stein, there's Philip Baker Hall. You see Brian Doyle Murray, who I found out is actually Bill Murray's brother, which I had never known before.
Okay.
Yeah, he put the Doyle there because there's some other guy named Brian Murray that he didn't want to get like mixed up with. So yeah, that's his brother. And then
it was interesting because there's the Titanic one, but then he comes back later when the Statue of Liberty is coming back through. Yeah, it's like they had him and they had that shot and they were like, hey, we've got 2 scenes near the water. Like, let's get a second one.
Yeah. You're like, it's gold. It's going to be gold. Yeah. I love it. Who else was in there? There was Bobby Brown, of course, because he sings the Gonna Make It Happen song, which was also co-written by Babyface Edmonds, which I didn't know before. Who else? Yeah, there's tons of people in there. And then in the first movie, too, you've got Reginald Val Johnson, which is great. I love him. He's awesome.
You've got John Candy in the music video, but not in the movie.
Which is so weird. You're like, why are you doing this?
He was apparently going to be in the film. I think he was going to be Lewis.
Really?
Originally. Yeah, I think so. It was someone like that. And for whatever reason, it didn't pan out. Like, maybe they didn't like what he was doing with it, or he wasn't able to do it on the day. I'm not really sure. But my understanding is he was going to be in the movie originally. Because the music video, I think, was shot early, like before they shot a lot of the other stuff. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I feel like it was Lewis. Like, I mean, what other characters could he have been? It's hard to.
That's the real question. Yeah.
I think it was Lewis. That would be so different. Like, because he is amazing. Rick Moranis in both the movies is just so funny. I think he's my favorite character across the 2 films. There's the reoccurring joke in the first one, which I didn't realize happened quite as much as it happens, where he keeps locking himself out of his apartment.
Yeah.
And the first one is like a really obvious one. And then the second one, he comes out and he's kind of in the foreground. He's not even 100% in focus. And Bill Murray comes out, and it's like he comes out to see who's coming out of her apartment. He sees it's Bill Murray, gets really awkward about it, and tries to go back in, but then the door's locked. So he just stands there as Bill Murray walks past. He doesn't say anything. And I was just dying. I never realized how funny that scene was until I watched it. And he's just... And right the way through, he's just so funny.
He's so funny. Like, I love the part in when he's running from the dog or whatever you want to call it, and he's by the glass window and he turns around and it's like attacking him and everybody's just staring. But he's just so animated in that whole like sequence, like running through the park, knocking on the windows, like the whole bit. It's so funny. Like, I found myself properly laughing at that scene, and I was like, I didn't realize, how like hilarious this was. I remember it being fun, but I don't remember
Yeah.
it being funny. And it was
Yeah.
legitimately funny.
Like, and even when the dog first comes, he's like, "Okay, who brought a dog to the party?" And he's just like, he just hadn't noticed that someone had brought a dog in and like put it in there.
Yeah.
A really weird bit with that scene that I hadn't noticed before with that restaurant with all the glass is you can't ever see the dog when it's looking out through the glass. And so you see him like sliding down the thing and like he's clearly being attacked, but you can't see the dog. And it's like, I'm not sure if that was an effects thing, like it was too hard to do, or is it a thing where, but other people saw the dog, like as he was coming out of, like it blasted through a door and stuff. So other people must have seen the dog. And then they talk about someone bringing a cougar to the party when Bill Murray comes back. So other people saw the dog, but for whatever reason in that scene, you can't see the dog outside of the glass.
Oh, I never thought about it that way because I always assumed I was like, oh, the dog is like a ghostly entity. So people in the restaurant, like, because I was wondering why the people in the restaurant are ignoring him, and they're like, he's just a crazy guy. We see this all the time because I'm assuming he was running through Central Park, and there are some people who are not in the greatest state of mind or are chemically influenced there, and they're probably just like, yeah, we see it all the time, whatever, as long as they don't break the glass and come inside, it's fine. And so if they're not seeing anything, they're gonna just ignore him. They're just but if they saw like an animal,
but we know that they see the animal earlier because we see the door smash open, we see people react to it, like so it was just a little bit of an interesting thing, and I wondered whether it was an effects choice or whether it was a choice of that maybe originally you weren't going to see it, and then they changed that because the effects were ready, so that they wanted to use them. I'm not really sure. I just thought it was an interesting thing that I hadn't noticed before. But yeah, I've never heard anyone talk about it. I'd never really thought about it before.
Yeah, me neither. Interesting. Yeah, because you bring it up that way, and like there's a juxtaposition of like what is the point of this dog character then?
Because I could see a world where you could say only he sees it because it's possessing him. Like that's the point of it, is it's going to possess him, so he becomes the keymaster. And like I get that, and I think that would be a totally cool way to do it. Except that we've seen it bust through doors. We've seen many people react to it around him as well. So it's just a thing where I wonder if they changed it or whether it was to do with effects. Because I imagine maybe doing the effect through the window would be harder to pull off because of frames and things like that.
Sure. Well, I wonder if it's that it was far enough away from him at first that people couldn't see it through the glass because it's nighttime and it's bright inside, so you wouldn't see that far outside. But when he's getting quote unquote attacked, he's not actually being attacked. It's just like the thing going
slide down the glass. Yeah.
So it's not like a physical entity anymore. It's just like a
true. Maybe it's gone into him by that point. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is.
I'm going to send you the no prize. I think we'll go with that. I think you've explained that. Yeah.
We've done it, guys. We've fixed the problem. We know what it is. Love it.
So we spoke a bit about Peter and a bit about Lewis. Who? Well, I guess maybe to start with, who's your favorite Ghostbuster?
Who's my favorite? Oh, I used to think it was Venkman, and now on the rewatch, I just think he's creepy. I'm gonna say technically he's not a Ghostbuster, but I'm gonna go with Rick Moranis.
He kind of is in the last one. Like he gets a suit in the last movie.
He does, and I think that's great. So he is my favorite. And Ray comes in a very close second because he is like, it's like every time there's a ghost, he's like a kid in a candy store and he's all happy and he's like, oh, this is exciting. This is so much fun. And he's not creepy and he's also not an asshole. He's just like, I'm a guy who knows this very particular thing and I'm going to have fun with it.
He's a ghost store. Yeah. The massive ghost store. And he loves all the language. Like he does so well with that. And like my understanding is that Dan Aykroyd's really into spiritual stuff. Ghosts and things in real life, and actually that maybe even his parents were involved in spiritualism and mediumship and things like that. I might be making that up, but I think that's a thing. And that he just seems to relish talking about the equipment and all of those things. He sells it really, really well. The other person who sells it really, really well, and my favorite character is Egon. I just love Egon, and as a kid, I don't think that I realized that Egon was supposed to be funny, or that Egon was I just thought he was the coolest person on earth, and I just loved him so much, and loved how much he knew about all of this stuff. So Egon is my pick. And then I feel bad because we end up leaving out Winston, who I think is actually a really good addition to the team.
Yeah, but he doesn't do that much. He brings a little bit of common sense, why are you doing this? This is crazy. So he brings a little bit of common sense, but in most scenes, he's just kind of in the background making faces, and you're just why are you here? And
he has some great lines, like the Twinkie line and the I love this town and that's that stuff. I think he works for me because he's not a comedian like all of the others. He feels like a more grounded character, and I like that aspect. And maybe I like him a lot more because he was a much bigger part of the cartoon as well. Because I remember when me and my brother used to play Ghostbusters, I was Egon and he was always Winston. And that was the way that we played Ghostbusters. And so I really like Winston, but you're not wrong. Like, all of the things that you're saying are true.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to like him, but especially in the first movie where he just he shows up 3/4 in, here's my resume, and you're like, here, hold this thing. And then in that whole sequence, he says, hi, my name is Winston. I'm new here. And that's it. That's all he says for a good 25 minutes. And then he yells, I love this town at the end. And you're like, okay.
And even the second film, the big part of the beginning with the birthday party scene. And then he's gone for a while. He's not there when they're digging into they don't explain it, but he's not there when they're digging into the thing. He doesn't get arrested. He doesn't none of those. He's not in any of those scenes.
I had assumed based on the beginning, because they're coming out of the birthday party and he's like, we should just give this up. It's over. And I was like, oh, I thought Winston, I thought to myself, I thought Winston was in more of this movie. I thought he was at the end. And then I was thinking, oh no, he quits now and he just doesn't come back. And it's true, until they get to the court scene and you see him pat the guy on the shoulder, I assumed he was no longer in the film, to be honest. Yeah. And I was that's where he comes back.
There's the big thing about, because Dana asks Egon for help specifically, and he says, do you mind if I get Ray in on this? And she's like, yeah, but not Peter. But they kind of just ignore poor old Winston. And then Peter comes anyway, and it's just I felt that bit kind of annoyed me. And I'm just guys, come on, bring Winston along.
Get the whole team in there if you're going to do it. All of them.
I really like Winston, and maybe that's part, because I like all of them. And I really like Winston. And so watching Ghostbusters 2, I was a little bit shocked that he wasn't in more of the movie. Mm-hmm. I thought he was in that. And then he kind of comes back, but they don't really explain where he's been. Just all of a sudden he's there when they go to look for the where the ghost train comes. All of a sudden he's just back again. It's a weird way.
Yeah, again, I will bring up the whole him saying Ghostbusters are done at the beginning and then coming back, because I think when he shows up at the courthouse in the it's the middle of the movie.
Yeah,
I want to say when he shows up there and then there are ghosts again, I think that's the point where he's like, oh no, the ghosts are back, and he joins the team again.
I've got to join again. But they don't make yeah.
But I think a scene is missing in there to solidify that. And then he's just with them.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that does explain that kind of plot hole. It just, I just feel because apparently Eddie Murphy was originally they were talking about for one
I
of
heard
the
that.
I'm not sure if it was Winston or one of the others, but I just feel like that would have been a very different role with Eddie Murphy in it, and I'm kind of glad that they went the way that they did with having that kind of more grounded character. But I think the flip side of that is he just didn't get the screen time that those bigger stars got. And I noticed that a lot more this time around. And again, like I say, coming from the cartoon where he's a proper part of the team. Like he's not the extra Ghostbuster. Like you look at the cover of Ghostbusters 1, he's not even on it. Like, and so in my mind, he was in Ghostbusters 2 a lot more than he actually maybe was when I rewatched it.
Was originally like maybe it was one of those things. Well, then maybe we should bring him back for this or something, you know? Yeah.
Have you watched Stranger Things?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. And there's the whole argument about who has to be Winston because Winston's not a scientist. And I really like that scene because I like that the thing that they're fighting about is that he wasn't like they don't want to be the guy that's not a scientist on the team. And I thought that was a really cool way of looking at those kids. And like the Ghostbusters, like literally, like it legitimately made science cool. And I think like it made science in air quotes cool because it's not probably very scientific. But for me, and like I said before, like Egon, I never realized he was a joke. Not until much, much later. I thought he was the coolest guy on Earth because and all of the things that he knew about science and everything about him. Just he was a super cool guy, and I think that's kind of a cool thing about this movie, and maybe like that it had that impact a little bit on kids that science is cool and
science is to do cool things you have to know nerdy things at the same time. You know, it's like being an astronaut. I mean, like people are just like, oh, you got to be a man's man to be an astronaut. But at the same time, like you got to be a real nerd to be an astronaut as well. You realize this. You got to do lots of studying, lots of this, lots of that. And then you get to be an astronaut on top of all of it. And it's the same thing with the Ghostbusters. You got to be a giant nerd. Like, I mean, they own a bookstore about the occult and they're like flipping through books and reading books, learning things. Or even in the first one where he's like finding maps and like searching for things and finding information and then figuring out how to handle these ghosts and these entities. And then that's when the cool part happens, quote unquote.
Yeah. It certainly had, I guess, it had that kind of impact. Not that I work in science by any means, but it had that impact on me. Like, it's a movie that I was so glad when I saw that this was the one movie that I would get to come and talk to you about because it had, like, a massive impact on my life. It's in my top 3 movies easily. And so love ghosts and the paranormal and have always had a big interest in that stuff. I wouldn't say that I'm a big necessarily believer, but certainly I've always had an interest in that sort of things. And I don't know if you know this about me or not, but we actually, I was a co-founding member of the Launceston Paranormal Society.
Yeah.
The city that I live in, we started the Paranormal Society here. And we went ghost hunting at people's houses and a bunch of locations around Tasmania. So it certainly had that kind of impact. And again, I don't think I really realized quite the impact that it had on me until, again, I was rewatching it and thinking about this stuff. Because I was thinking about as I'm watching it, there's all these ghost shows now, and there's like all this equipment. And again, I'm doing air quotes here. There's equipment that they use for looking for ghosts that I don't necessarily buy to. But so much of that equipment looks like Ghostbusters stuff. And it's like the EMF detectors and things that, like the detectors that they use, basically the current ghost hunter groups basically using Ghostbusters stuff. Maybe not the backpacks and the wands, but the detectors and things. It's so much like Ghostbusters. And I don't think I didn't click that how much they obviously have that movie must have influenced a lot of other people. Like, so a lot of these ghost hunting groups probably were pretty influenced by Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and like I think sometimes like life imitates art in that way where, you know, people are interested in finding or creating things to explore a subject, and the art was created before the thing was created, so that's what they follow. And even like terminologies that they still use the same type of terminology when describing things, so that even like the layman can understand it because it's common terminology, you know, you would say. And I think it's interesting. I mean, like that happens with things like I'm gonna bring this up like I do most episodes. Star Trek, where like when they had flip phones for communicators and tablets and things like that. It's a lot of it. The design or the layout or the use has a lot to do with what was presented there, even though the stuff on the show itself was already based on sciences. The creation of the thing, the design was based on what they was created on the shows. And I think that's the thing with like the Ghostbusters and ghost hunters and stuff. Now they use the terminology, the stuff they create to find the ghost, quote unquote, looks the same because that is their reference to what that thing should be.
Yeah, and I think maybe as well that especially Dan Aykroyd, I think, really did his homework. So like the language that they were using for things like full body apparitions and stuff like that, they were using the language that the ghost hunters prior to Ghostbusters were using, because obviously, like say, my understanding is he has a big interest in the field, and so he put that in there. And then maybe as kids we absorbed it, and then it kind of kept putting it back out there, which I think is really, really cool. And I mean, certainly I would have loved to have had a pack and a laser when our form of ghost hunting was not nearly as exciting as the movies made out to be.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly saw some. We didn't see a lot of things. We recorded some kind of cool things at some of the places that we went. We also did a lot of sitting in empty rooms for hours. That was probably more of what we saw. I'll tell you about one of my favorite investigations, just to give you an idea of what real ghost hunting was like. So what would usually happen is someone would ask us to come and have a look at a place that they thought might be haunted, and we'd be invited there, essentially. And what we would do is kind of, I guess, try and record on video, typically, some sort of evidence that there could be a ghost there, but also kind of supply them with some alternative suggestions, like maybe it's not a ghost, maybe it's these other things. And we got invited to this really old pub in quite a remote town, and it was used as sort of a internet library type thing downstairs for the community, and then they didn't use upstairs. And they said to us, we hear walking around in the middle of the night upstairs, and we hear all of these things. And we're like, oh, well, you guys don't use upstairs, do you? And they're like, no, so it's really strange. And we're like, can we go up there and have a look? And so we went upstairs to have a look, and there's just like possum poo everywhere. So it was like so clear that there were possums all through the upstairs of that building. And like the possums that we have here, they're pretty big and they're loud. So we kind of like, I think we've debunked that claim. The other claim was the other main claim. There were several, but these were the two big ones that stood out to me. The other one was that this room, when you're outside of the room, you can hear people talking in there. But when you open the door, the voices stop. And that was really weird. And we couldn't work it out. And we tried like a lot of things to try and work it out. And I was like, it's weird. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, if there's not someone in there, I don't know how that would happen. And we're there at we kind of debunked everything else, and we were sort of just waiting out the clock to do our due diligence of having visited. And all of a sudden, start hearing this sort of a humming and some banging from this room where they hear the voices. And went and opened the door, and it stopped. Closed the door again, started up again. So strange. Could not work out what it was. Happened to look out the window. Maybe 100 meters up the street was a guy with like a bakery truck, and he was unloading bread for the supermarket. And what we were hearing was him humming and taking the bread off of the truck. But because of some weird acoustic thing, it sounded like it was in that room. And it was very easy to see how people would never, like, if we hadn't been there in the middle of the night, we wouldn't have worked it out because there would have been too many other noises and things. But so very easy to work out how people think that it's a ghost, because to me, there's no logical explanation except that there is one. It's just a really, really strange one. And that to me was always my favorite part of when we don't do it much nowadays. We all have kids. But that was my favorite part of being, I guess, a ghost hunter, was kind of solving these really like complex puzzles and trying to debunk the ghost side of things. As much as I would love to see a ghost, that was kind of my favorite aspect of that kind of job. And I think that is like kind of a Ghostbusters-y way to be. Like that they did go in, especially Peter initially, go in quite skeptically until they see a ghost. He wasn't a true believer, but then he also changed his mind. He saw a ghost. He's like, okay, I guess they're real.
It's true. Yeah, I think a lot of people are that way. They're like, that can't be real until they see it, and then they're just like, oh, because even in like the second movie, the judge starting is like, ghosts aren't real. You guys are charlatans. You're nuts. And then
it's Marshmallow
yeah.
like, what was the Marshmallow Man?
Yeah, didn't you see the whole thing? There was marshmallow through like 10 blocks of the city afterwards. Are you sure it wasn't real?
Yeah, that scene is a weird one, isn't it? Because maybe he didn't live in New York. Like maybe he didn't. Yeah. But it's an odd one. Like, how do you, like, it's right there. Like, how do you ignore that?
I mean, like, they do preface the fall of the Ghostbusters to the fact that they blew up a building, they got sued by a bunch of people for endangering people and, you know, property destruction and all this kind of stuff. And because the thing that was creating and making the ghosts and the apparitions unsettled got, you know, taken out, there were no ghosts anymore.
Yeah, they're gone now. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it was only 5 years. Exactly. It would have been international news. People would have, I'm assuming at least one reporter, like there was no smartphones at the time, so I get it. But at least a reporter or somebody would have had a camera and taken a picture of this thing and that it existed. So,
and there was huge amounts of marshmallow that needed to be cleaned up afterwards. Like it wasn't going to be a small job. I think they do kind of do that. Like and maybe this is how we are as people a little bit. Like we do kind of ignore things that are hitting us in the face sometimes. That with the birthday parties, they say, oh, in another year they won't even remember who we were. That maybe a year before their birthday parties were a bit more successful. And maybe because they were heroes for a while, and then that's dropped off. And as that's dropped off, people have started to bring out their books why the Ghostbusters are frauds. Like the conversation has changed because there aren't, like you say, there are no more ghosts.
I just think in that scene, it's more the mothers are like, oh my god, it's the Ghostbusters, you should be excited about this. Like they're not like, you know, excited about Ghostbusters. We're like, Ghostbusters are actual heroes, they're here, you should be excited too. But I mean, a 7-year-old was 2 years old when that happened. They're not going to remember, but like they're saying, He-Man's on TV and he's a real hero, so you know, that might be part of it too.
And I mean, there are people right now that believe that the Earth is flat. So there are people that will ignore evidence of a giant marshmallow man, and obviously that judge was one of them. So
obviously, until the ghosts show up and try to kill him, and then he's like, "You have to save me," and they're like, "Why? You don't believe they exist, so they shouldn't hurt you. What's the big deal?"
That scene is so good. That court scene, I like that whole scene is really nice. Lewis is hilarious when it clearly is so out of his depth, and Peter's kind of coaxing him through what he needs to say. But the scene where as the judge gets more and more angry and the bubbles start to come up in the thing, like the tension is so good, and he's just getting angrier and angrier, and the bubbles are going up and up, and you know something's about to happen, but you're not quite sure when it's gonna go pop. I absolutely love that scene.
It's great. Yeah, it's awesome, and I think it's the cutting back and forth between the judge, the goo, and the Ghostbusters. It's like it was like just the proper like transitions back and forth, because they do that like, I want to say like 9 cuts in that scene, you know, and you're like, that seems like a lot to build it up, but they do it so well that it's great, because it's the judge yelling, then I think it's the Ghostbusters, and they're like, hey, look at the goo, and then you see the goo, and then you go back to them, then you go to the judge who's still yelling, then you go back to the goo, and they're like, Judge, maybe you should. And he's like, shut up, you know? They go back to the goo, they duck, and it goes back to the judge just screaming and explosion. And you're just like, that is a proper build of tension. That is a good sequence, like the whole time.
I think maybe that scene's also because we've seen a lot of the slime at that stage, but maybe we've only seen one scene before about the mood properties of the slime, and that the toaster scene with that kind of, we see that positive emotions affect the toaster. So I think as well, it's also a really good scene of reminding us how the slime works, like that it is this emotion thing. And then as it goes on, we must have seen it when they were in. No, we saw them take the slime, but they haven't been back underground yet either. So this is the second time that we really see how the slime works. And I think that's really, they do a good job in the movie of explaining that to you. But when after that, when they go back into the sewers and they fall into it, and then they come out and they're all angry and they're hitting each other. Again, they're kind of reminding us about how the slime works. And then later on, that sets up the Statue of Liberty stuff, but then it also sets up like when they shoot a character that we haven't even talked about yet. They shoot Janosch with the slime as well.
Yeah.
And then Ray, once he gets possessed, they shoot him with the slime. Like they really do a good job of setting up. This is what the slime does, and this is how it works in our world. And I don't think I quite realized how well they did that until I started paying more attention to it.
Yeah, it's in very small pieces that they just drop, here's information about the slime, and then how we're going to end up using it throughout the film. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and then also slime just makes ghosts. Like that's the other aspect of the slime that's kind of unrelated. Like the slime can take over a baby carriage or a bath or a lady's coat. It kind of can also do any ghosty thing that you want it to do.
Talking about Peter McNichol, he does a great job as Janosch. Like I don't like I think he's like his like I don't know what country's accent that's supposed to be, but that accent is kind of ridiculous, but also good.
Like it's very much, I feel like it's a Borat thing where it's not one place, like it's this odd, it sounds foreign, and we don't know it. Like actually, me and my wife Sally, when we were watching the movie, we talked about the fact that in the 80s, that seemed to be a bit of a thing, like the Eastern European. And say an American actor playing an Eastern European character seemed to be a bit of a thing, and there were things like, what's the show with Balky?
Perfect Strangers. Yeah,
Perfect Strangers. Like there was that, and we came up with other examples. I'm blanking them now.
I mean, the guy who played Balky did it on Perfect Strangers, but he also showed up in Beverly Hills Cop in like an art gallery. And
really?
It's a slightly different accent, but it's sort of that like random Eastern European accent, but he's cooler, which I always thought was weird. I'm just like, are you just like cool Balky or what's happening here? Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I feel like it was definitely a thing. And then it kind of went away and it hasn't really come back, but I feel like Borat is kind of the end, the final evolution of those characters. And I think because maybe it is a little bit offensive, like it maybe, but like Borat recognizes that it's offensive and it owns it. I feel like those 80s ones, maybe they didn't really recognize it, but it was also like, it's clearly good humored. It's not meant to be mean spirited or anything like that. It's just like, hey, he's got a bit of a funny voice and he's from somewhere.
And that's the thing. Like they don't actually identify where he's supposed to be from, which also reduces the stigma that it could cause. Like they're like, no, this is an accent from I don't know.
And that adds to, I guess, although we do know that, I think they say that he's Moldavian, the Vigo, but certainly Vigo is a bit mysterious too. Like
he's Carpathian.
Yes, I think they say both during the movie, but again, he's a bit mysterious. Like he's from somewhere in Eastern Europe, and I feel like they've kind of connected the two together that way.
Yeah.
We assume that he's brought the painting over or something. I guess they never really say.
Well, they say it was in the basement of the museum for a while, and they brought it up to restore it. But who knows how long it's been there or what? Yeah.
The restoration thing. So Dana, her new job in Ghostbusters 2 is restoring very valuable paintings. Her job in the first one is she's a member of the orchestra.
Yep. She's a cellist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She seems to have a very unique set of skills.
I know, like it made no sense to me either, because even so it actually turns out like that's her part-time job while she's taking care of her baby.
Yes.
And she's like, my baby's getting bigger, so I'm gonna go back to the orchestra. And I was just like, wait a second, you can get a part-time job in a prestigious museum, like cleaning and fixing priceless works of art? I didn't know that was a thing.
She does okay. Like she had that pretty nice apartment in the first movie. The second apartment seems to be fairly nice. She has a nanny. We only see her very, very briefly at the beginning of the movie, but she has a nanny as well, which just seemed like an odd thing to include. Like, because she adds nothing to the story and she's never in it again. And then later on, they need to get a babysitter. Like, why not ask the nanny?
Yeah, your nanny still exists. You could just call her over.
Yes, it's you're just at Peter's house. Like, but yeah, so I found that really weird. Like, I don't know why they included the nanny. It just seems like there was no reason for that she needed to be there for that scene where they come to look at the baby. Like, that could have all just been Dana. Like, I didn't really.
Yeah, she was just home hanging out, so she could just been hanging out with her baby, and they show up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that. Like, did the nanny have a bigger role at some point? And then they were like, it would be better to have Janine and Lewis. I mean, was the better choice, easily. But
easily, yeah.
Yeah. It just seemed like such an odd thing that she was like, oh, we wouldn't be able to get a babysitter. Like, you have a nanny.
I know the things that you think of watching this, especially as a kid, you're just like, oh, she's got a nanny, whatever. Yeah. Oh no, she doesn't have anybody to take care of her kid. You just don't think about it. But as an adult, practicality, you're just like, you have a nanny, call your nanny. What's the big deal?
And I think this is maybe the first time I've ever watched the movies as not just for entertainment. Like, I knew I was talking to you about it. And like, I think, like, I know the movies really well, but I was like, I'm going to rewatch them. I want to rewatch them so they're fresh in my mind. And I think I watched them in a different way to the way that I've previously watched them. And in some ways that's really cool. But in some ways I was like, this doesn't make sense. And I kind of, I don't enjoy that it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm like, no, Ghostbusters 2 is a perfect movie. This can't be right.
Yeah, one thing I realized rewatching all of these is like, there are certain movies, like I did Fifth Element, for example, and it's a movie I love. Like, I just love watching this movie. I watch it a ridiculous amount of times, know it like the back of my hand, everything's fine. But like, watching it for the podcast was very frustrating because I'm like, I have to actively like look at scenes and how it's structured and pick out things and whatever. And I'm like looking at it, and I'm just like, why is Lilo's bandages like that? Doesn't make any sense. Why is her hair orange? Like, what's up with that guy? Didn't that guy just die in a fridge? How come he shows back up over here? None of this makes any sense. And then I just stopped taking notes so I can enjoy the movie. Like, I just flat out stopped taking notes because I was like, I can't do this. Stop ripping it apart. Just watch the movie. And that's what happened. And I think with you, that's probably what happened with like Ghostbusters too. You're just like, I just need to watch this. This is just going to be fun.
Yeah. And I don't think that it's going to ruin my future watchings of it because, again, I won't be watching it that way necessarily. But certainly when I looked at it critically, in maybe a more critical way, I just focused on those things that I hadn't focused on before, like we mentioned the marshmallows being a reoccurring thing. Like, I just had never noticed it before. It was really cool. Like, I feel like I know the movies better than I knew them before, which as like I would call myself a pretty big Ghostbusters fan. That's cool. I think like it's cool to know that I know these things about the movies that I didn't know yesterday, like before I watched them. But yeah, but it's interesting. It's yeah, I never looked at them that way before. The Ghostbusters to me were always just those movies that I love from when I was a kid, and I still love them as much as I've always loved them.
Yeah.
And I still do, even if Peter's a little bit creepier than I remembered him being.
It's true. Well, even in the second movie during the trial, and the other lawyers trying to cross-examine him, and he's like, "Look, kitten." That made me so angry. I was so mad. Because I was like, what are you doing? She's a lawyer. She's a professional. And I know you've degraded other people, and I guess they were men who kind of deserved it. Like even in the first movie, the EPA guy, who for no reason hates the Ghostbusters. He always plays a dick in every single movie he's in. What's up with that? But he's just like, like this man is dickless. And I was like, ha ha ha. But I think it's because he was an asshole where she was not being rude. She wasn't being mean. She was cross-examining and asking him a plain question. And he's like, well, kitten. I was like, no, that's not acceptable. Not acceptable at all.
And I feel like his treatment of women in the second one, because most of his interactions with women are with Dana, and they have had a previous relationship at this point. So it didn't feel as creepy in the second one to me as it did in the first one. Because in the first one, he's just met this lady, and like he's all over her and being creepy. And in his defense, when she's possessed and there was an opportunity to sleep with her, he chooses not to. So he's not all bad. Like he has redeeming moments. I mean, he does then kiss her on the neck afterwards, which is a bit creepy, but like he has some redeeming moments. But I think he didn't feel as bad in the second one because they've had a relationship. She clearly likes him. It's not unwanted attention necessarily in the second movie. Whereas in the first movie, for a lot of it feels pretty unwanted.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, who's this creep that keeps coming over to my house? And
and just hanging out and checking things and keeps overly talking to me. Like it's nuts. Yeah, it's true. And in the second movie, even though they had been estranged from each other for a while, like, they had a relationship, they broke up, she got married, separated, but had a kid with this man and is back in New York. And they see each other and you're just like, oh, it wasn't a breakup out of I hate you. It was more of a circumstantial breakup. So like there is still that connection between them. So seeing him still like fawn over her is okay. And it's clear that she likes it more in this one compared to the first one.
Yeah, definitely. That's the big difference. And even that she says in the second one, she recognizes that he's bad for her. Like that he's maybe not the best. The two things that I was thinking of as we were talking, in the first one, when he first comes over to her house and he has that machine and he just like squeezes it and it just like sprays air. And then she says something along the lines of, "Are you sure you're using that correctly?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, I think so." That was one of my favorite lines. But the other thing I thought of is the baby, Oscar. Is I guess the other big character in the second one that we haven't really mentioned. He's super cute. Maybe I'm just biased because I realize he looks an awful lot like my son. So I was watching the movie. And Oscar was actually on the table as a baby name. And I don't know if Sally recognized it, but it was because of Ghostbusters too. That's why I suggested.
That's amazing.
So for the listeners, we ended up going with Peter. Not Peter Venkman, but Peter Parker. So, but I've also realized there's a lot of really cool pop culture Peters since we named him as well. So, but yeah, Oscar, the baby does a really good job. Or the babies.
It's twins, yeah. And I realized too, like watching this, I'm like, that baby's so cute. And I'm like, that baby is 32. What are you talking about? Like,
they say he's 9 months old, and then he's like standing up, and because having a baby is very recent to me, like he wasn't standing up like that when he was 9 months old.
Yeah, no, I do like the second movie a lot. and I do like all of the characters. Like I even like what's his name? Vigo the Carpathian. Even as like a bad guy, he doesn't do that much. He's just in a painting and he's just ominous, you know, does a great job. Like it's like he's good as that.
As well. Absolutely gorgeous hair when he's Antine perfect. Just kind of flowing in the wind. Yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing is the guy who plays that is Norbert Groupie. I know this because I decided to look up, like, a thing I do is I try to look up, like, if any of these, like, especially the quote unquote unknown people have done anything else to see if, like, oh, I've actually seen them in other things. He didn't do that much, but apparently this guy is a horrible person in general.
I've heard that too. I haven't looked into the details. And actually, yesterday after I watched the movie, I was like, I should see if there's a YouTube video or something on him, because I've heard that he's an awful person, but I have no idea about any of the details surrounding. I found this Deadspin article about him, and one of the lines is Norbert Krupp, a Nazi soldier's son, boxer, professional wrestler, failed actor, criminal, and miserable human being. I'm like, is that where, like, I guess he's good at playing the bad guy? Like, maybe that's why we think he did such a good job, you know? Yeah. So, it's always hard when you find those things out about characters that you like and things, because then you have to make the choice about how that impacts you enjoying the movie or whatever going forward. I think for a lot of people there was sort of the Kevin Spacey type moments where all of a sudden you have to go back and maybe reassess some of the movies that you like. And part of why I haven't looked more into why that guy was considered, because I've heard that many times that he's like a really, like, he's really nasty dude. But I've never looked it up, which to me seems really strange, because usually I'm curious and I would want to know more. And I wonder if that's part of me just like protecting myself, being like, no, I don't want to reassess this movie. Like, I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is. I don't want to know.
Yeah, I think the thing about him, though, he played the bad guy, and I'm kind of okay continuing to hate him. Yeah. But, you know, it's fine, right?
And just because you're evil doesn't mean you can't have gorgeous hair.
Yeah. It's true. Like, he steps out of the painting and it's like his hair's just blowing in the wind, and you're just like, oh, wow. Like Vidal Sassoon. Like, love it. It's very good.
There's some great hair across the movies too. So Egon is the obvious standout. Yeah. Especially, I think he gets an extra foot of hair between 1 and 2. Like, his hair is tall in Ghostbusters 1, but in Ghostbusters 2, it's massive. Like,
well, I think that has to do with the cartoon, because in the cartoon, he's got this, like, he's, first of all, bleach blonde for some reason, but his hair is high and has this, like, swirling cone coming out of the front of it. And I think as well. And maybe they were like trying to like emulate that look still with, and he was just like, you can't bleach it, but I'll make it higher, you know?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I wonder if some of that was to make them read better in animation, so they stood out more against each other. Because, I mean, they're kind of 3 generic white guys. Because I think Ray does the worst. Like, he's way chubbier in the cartoon than he ever is in the movies. Yeah. Like, I felt like that was a bit unfair. And then Peter, who's a bit of a schlubby guy, is a lot more handsome in the cartoons, I think, than he was in the movies.
And Egon is taller. Like, he's taller in the show, but he's also a lot skinnier. Right?
Yes,
because in the movies, they're all about the same size, except Egon's a little bit taller than them. And it's true, like, they're like, if in a cartoon you just saw that, you'd be like, which one is it again? Who's that one? You know, like, they'd have to have giant name tags so everybody would know.
They have different color uniforms, I think, as well, to maybe make them stand out a little bit more in the cartoon as well. Yeah. Did you watch the cartoon growing up?
I watched both of the cartoons growing up, yeah.
So I've only just recently discovered, like, I knew about Extreme Ghostbusters, but I'd never seen it. I don't think it was really a thing here. But so YouTube just recently has started the official Ghostbusters channel is adding a new episode of Real Ghostbusters and a new episode of Extreme Ghostbusters each week. And I've been watching Extreme Ghostbusters, and it's really good. It's like a 90s, slightly edgy Ghostbusters cartoon.
I have never seen Extreme Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it's a follow-up. So it's a sequel to Real Ghostbusters, and like Egon's in it, and he's kind of like their mentor. And he teaches the class that the 4 new Ghostbusters join, and Janine is in it. I haven't seen any of the other Ghostbusters yet, but I feel like they will make an appearance. And Slimer is in it as well.
Well, it says here there's only what did this say? There's only 40 episodes, and it was made in 1997.
Yeah, so I don't think it was really a thing here. At least I wasn't. I've heard of it, but I don't think it ever really aired here. But it's worth a watch, and like I say, totally free on YouTube.
I will check that. I will check out for sure.
Yeah, it's the hot tip. Me and my son have been watching the new episode of Real Ghostbusters and the new episode of Extreme Ghostbusters each week as they come out. So it's kind of a fun thing to do because it's very, very big thing. The cartoon and the toys and all of that side of things was really a big deal for me as a kid. It was one. There were things like He-Man and other stuff. I think I like Ghostbusters like even more. That was my jam. So yeah.
I loved She-Ra growing up, but do not rewatch He-Man or She-Ra or the Thundercats. They are brutal.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up well. Ghostbusters holds up a lot better. The Ghostbusters cartoon holds up much better. I feel like it was a show that kids could watch, but it was maybe aimed slightly more mature anyway. And being about ghosts and stuff, probably that makes sense. But yeah, the Ghostbusters cartoon shows it holds up pretty well, and the Extreme Ghostbusters especially is. I mean, it's pretty 90s. There was one specific comment where a guy's coming on to a girl, and someone is like, a bit creepy dude, and he's like, "What? She's legal." That felt like a very 90s. It felt like a very 90s inclusion that you wouldn't see in a cartoon today.
That is wrong. Oh my god. But
overall, the cartoon is good. It's just that particular. I think the 90s kind of has some issues with that sort of stuff. But
yeah. Okay. That's wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I will have to check that one out then if it's available. For sure. So since we're talking about all of the other things around Ghostbusters, what did you think of the quote unquote female remake?
I liked it. I went into it knowing that I'm probably never going to like it as much as I like the originals. That's okay. Like, I didn't really expect to. I don't have the nostalgia. That was never going to happen. It could be the best movie of all time, and I still probably wouldn't like it as much. But overall, I thought it was a pretty fun movie. I haven't seen it recently. I saw it at the cinema twice. I saw it with my wife on a date, and then I got to see it again through work. So that worked out really, really well. But I really enjoyed it. Just for what it was. It was just a fun, kind of dumb, silly movie. I think there's things it could have done better. I think that I feel like maybe they played it a bit too safe, and maybe that they could have went into the women a bit more. Like they're all really funny, and I think that they could have maybe let that go a bit further. I forget her name, but basically she was kind of the female Egon. She was really funny, and I felt like they could have let the other characters maybe go a bit further as well. But the main thing that I took away from it, and maybe it's why it still holds kind of a nice place in my heart, is when I saw it, one, I was shocked at how many kids were there, because I don't really think of it as being a particularly kid movie. And if anything, it probably feels a little bit more adult than the older ones did, but maybe that's just my modern sensibilities. But there were a lot of kids there. And at the end, when the Ghostbusters theme were playing, there were kids dancing in the aisles. Like, they were dancing Ghostbusters. And those kids, I think, are going to go on to love Ghostbusters. So I can't begrudge that movie. I feel like that's their Ghostbusters. And I was totally okay with that. My nephew is a mad Ghostbusters fan. I have no idea how he even got into Ghostbusters. But I'm sure it wouldn't have happened had that female remake not have happened. So I think it's important. And and I liked it for what it is. I haven't watched it recently, so it's hard for me to remember much of the details of it. But I think it was all right. I don't know. What did you?
Yeah, no, I actually thought it was pretty decent as well. Like I love Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy. I have a soft spot for Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones. So I was down for the cast. Like I was down for it, and I was gonna go watch it. And I saw it once in the theater, and then I saw it once when it came on. It came on demand here, and I just watched it on TV. Because it was one of those movies where I watched and I was like, I kind of enjoyed it, but and then I watched it a second time and I actually liked it more the second time I watched it. But my one complaint is their post-production on their ghosts. I hate it. I think they're ugly. Like I think the ghosts, like how they did it is just hideous. Like
it didn't have that kind of charm that I think they didn't quite nail that kind of mix between cartoony and realistic that the original ones did. I think better. Another standout for me in that movie, Chris Hemsworth, I thought was really good. It's nice to see him get to do comedy because more recently with Thor, he's kind of gone that way as well. But traditionally back then, we didn't see a lot of comedy from Chris Hemsworth, and I think he's pretty funny. And it was
a great job. Yeah,
it's good to see a bit more of that. Come out in that movie. Like I say, overall, I think it was good. I think you could tell it was a bit it was a bit chopped up. It wasn't maybe 100%, and maybe some of that's the way that it's Paul Feig, isn't it, that directed that movie? Like that he directs those movies. He does a lot of improvisation. And maybe there were times when the editing felt a bit weird in it for me from memory. And you could tell that they changed the end scenes. I think had changed a bit across the. Like even some of the stuff that you see in the end credits wasn't in the movie. So I wonder if they changed the ending quite a bit. But like overall, I thought it certainly wasn't a bad movie. Like
it definitely wasn't.
Yeah. And certainly people that were saying that it took away from the prestige or whatever of the brand, I don't buy that shit. Like at worst you don't enjoy the movie, go back and watch the old ones. Like it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt them, but it certainly brought Ghostbusters back into the attention of people again. And
I think it did the franchise justice,
Yeah.
But one of the things that frustrated me a lot about it was my same friend who is obsessed with Ghostbusters and stuff. He was all angry about it. He's like, "Why are there going to be chicks in this? There's no need to remake Ghostbusters. Like that's just stupid, right?" That was his first thing, and I was just like, "Fine, he's obsessed with Ghostbusters. Let him be in his space." But the thing that bothered me the most about it is that when the movie came out, and his arguments were all based on trailers. I don't even know if he's ever actually watched the movie. But he was all angry when watching the trailers. He's like, "Why does everything look the same? Like their jumpsuits are the same, their proton packs look almost the same. Like why are these the same?" But then anything that was even the slightest bit different, he was just like, "Why is that different? Like they did it perfectly in the other Ghostbusters." I'm like, "What do you want them to do exactly?" Like it is based on something that already exists, so they're gonna pay homage to it, or parts of it are gonna like be the same, but of course they're going to update certain areas. Like that's just how it's going to be. And I think no matter what they put out there, it could have been Oscar winning, it could have been the best movie ever made, and he would have been like, "That's garbage no matter what." So
I think you're right, and I think that's sometimes the problem with fandoms, and I think that's a way to take it. For me, it's that at worst I don't enjoy it. I still enjoy the old aspects that I used to enjoy. That's not going to change. I'm a Spider-Man fan. How many Spider-Man have we had in the last few years? I'm pretty used to that as well, so maybe that's why I didn't really care. That said, I'm really excited for the new Ghostbusters and the fact that it does take place in the same universe as originals. But there's no reason both can't exist. For me, we can have both. Hopefully that movie one day comes out because it's been delayed like so many times.
Yeah.
To me, maybe that's a good sign that they don't want to just chuck it out on a streaming service, that they think it's a good movie and that they want to get their money's worth back out of it. I'm hoping that that's a good sign for it. I mean, the director, he directed Juno. It was a fantastic film. So I'm hoping and a lot of other good movies too. So I'm hoping that it's good.
Yeah.
I'm really hopeful that it's going to be good. And like I say, the fact that they haven't snuck it out onto some streaming service gives me hope that it's good. And they're like, we've got something good here, and we want to get it out at the cinema.
Yeah. Yeah, and the sorry, I'm going to go back to the Ghostbusters female edition.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I think one of the reasons why I like the movie as well is that even though they're female versions of the Ghostbusters, they pay proper attention to the original characters being brought over to being female,
Yeah.
and like they don't make them completely different. They're like, no, this is the character who's based on Ray, or this is the character who's based on Venkman. This is the character who's based on Egon, and they keep those the base of their characters the same. And I think that's one of the reasons why I actually really like it, is that they didn't just throw it away and be like, no, they're female Ghostbusters, but it has nothing to do with the original one. Like they kept it in there. And I think the other thing that puts it together is the fact that almost everybody from Ghostbusters shows up, in there, which I loved. I loved seeing everybody again. They were different characters, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's the same with again, it's been a while since I watched it. I don't remember their names very well, but the sort of, for lack of a better word, the female Winston, she was that kind of still the everyman character. And I think she was a lot broader, like the comedy was a lot broader, but I think overall that movie was broader. Like the comedy, the original Ghostbusters it's quite restrained in its comedy, whereas I felt like that movie, the comedy was bigger in that Ghostbusters, and that was nice. Like, again, I think it was a good way to differentiate the two. Like it felt like a different version of Ghostbusters, but like you say, it kept those key elements that were important. It didn't change them for no reason. It didn't just change things for no reason. It kept the packs. It kept the car. They were different, and they were their own spin on them, but people expect those things, and they gave them those things. And like I say, I think I know that it's contentious, but I think it's a pretty good film, and I think it fits in well with the rest of the Ghostbusters stuff.
So do I. Like, I completely agree with you. Like, I'm not sure why people hate it so much, but I think that is, again, like a fandom / purist / sexist thing, why they hate it. Like, people automatically are just like, what do you mean female Ghostbusters? And they're just like, screw this, like this
there's
is
not
one
one reason that people hate it.
Yeah.
There's I think there's a few different reasons that people hate it. And there's maybe a bit of crossover between those groups. But for me, it's good. And I know that it's been generally, I think it's accepted. It's part of Ghostbusters. So I know that the comic books had a crossover between the two teams.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
So the female team and the original team. And they also had a crossover between the real Ghostbusters and the original team.
I did know that.
And Ninja Turtles, and I think Transformers at this point. So there's been a few. I don't know. Maybe we go too far away from the Ghostbusters canon, I suppose. But I don't know how much you've had a chance to read the comics, but they're also really, really good.
I haven't read that many of them. Like, when I say not that many, I mean like 5.
Yeah.
So really not that many. But I think one of them was one of the crossover ones.
Yeah.
I got it in like a bin somewhere for like 2. I was like, what? Found it and I was like, I gotta read this. And I did. But this was like years and years and years ago. So I remember very little about it. But yeah, I know they exist, but yeah, they were never really on my like buy list and have to read list.
Yeah. And I think the crossovers, at least the crossovers I've read, so I haven't read the crossover with the remake team, but the crossovers were okay. But the main series was really, really good. I felt like they got the voices of the characters really, really well done, and they, like, you read the comic and you're reading it with their voices kind of in your head. There were lots of little cool things, like I forget exactly why there was, but there's like one of them is hallucinating. I'm gonna assume it was Ray, and he's hallucinating like the Blues Brothers. And so there's like cool little things like that in there. So there was also the video game.
Yeah.
On the PlayStation where you played the rookie and he joined up with all the new Ghostbusters.
Mhm.
He's alluded to in the comics as well. Like he's someone that came through. So they did a really good job of kind of pulling all those things together. And yeah, they're well worth a read if you ever get the opportunity. They're some of the better movie kind of comics that I've read.
Nice. Speaking of the video game I played was the one that was based on Ghostbusters 2. And the scene that I remember the most out of that video game, which used to frustrate me, was when you had to get the sample of the ooze and you're hanging from the string. But the thing is, it's the ooze river would come out and like swipe at you and like get you. And I would always get knocked into the ooze and you're dead. And that's a part of the video game that's in my brain.
Yeah, I played a lot of the Sega Master System Ghostbusters 1 game, which was, as a kid, it was way too hard for a kid to work out how to play it. But it was it's really cool. I appreciate it now. Like, you go around town catching ghosts to try and get enough money to like upgrade your car and your equipment and stuff, which feels really Ghostbusters-y, like that you've got to make money for doing these jobs. But there was also like a Ghostbusters game on, I want to say it was on the PS2 or PS3, that all of the cast came back and did the voices for, and it was written by, I think, Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, and it basically feels like Ghostbusters 3, but it's a game. But yeah, all of the cast is back. Bill Murray kind of maybe feels like he's phoning it in a little bit, but the other guys are really on their games. And you play like the new Ghostbuster that they've just hired. So like you're basically the new Winston. Winston's there, but he's a proper Ghostbuster now. And you go on this adventure where basically all of the ghosts get out. So it gives you an excuse to go catch Slimer again and the Marshmallow Man. But it basically ends with the Ghostbusters going to hell and having to like fight their way out of hell. And it's really fantastic. Like it's actually a really good game. It may be one of those things where I don't know whether playing the game is worthwhile at this point, but you could probably watch the cinematics on YouTube and get the same effect. But yeah, I remember when it came out just being like so excited to hear all of them chatting, and it's new. Like, it's not stuff that I'd heard before. It was new Ghostbusters. And it was before Harold Ramis passed away. So you got like the proper Egon and everything as well. Very, very cool game. And just for the story alone, just to get to have that bit more of, just to spend a little bit more time with those guys as the Ghostbusters was really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a very cool game. I'll see if I can find what the title is.
I think it was recently remade on newer. It's available on newer consoles too. So yeah, it's. I'm trying to think, and that also reminded me of another kind of weird addition to the Ghostbusters canon that I just recently rediscovered. I was watching Casper. Do you remember the live action Casper movie? And I had totally forgotten that Ray is in that movie as Ray. Yeah. So Dan Aykroyd is in the movie in his Ghostbusters uniform. He has a moustache, which is a little strange. But he's totally Ray. And they're trying to get rid of the ghosts, so they call like all of these different people to come and try and get rid of the ghosts. And one of them is Ray from Ghostbusters. And he comes running out because the bad ghosts have scared him. And he says, "Who are you going to call?" "Someone else." And then he runs off. And that's like his whole scene. It was a pleasant surprise watching the live action version of Casper to kind of rediscover that.
I mean, I haven't watched that maybe in like 15 years. Like, it's been a really long time since I watched that. So I'm not surprised I forgot, but that is a fun little tidbit yeah, that's definitely part of the Ghostbusters canon, I think. I think it's part of their line. It's like, after Ghostbusters 2, the ghosts have gone again, things are falling apart, and he's just working on his own, just out there.
Definitely. Casper confirmed as canon for the Ghostbusters franchise. Yeah. But
Love
yeah,
it.
what a cool little surprise. Like, I just had totally, again, I hadn't seen those movies. Like, I liked Casper, I think, when it came out, but I was a kid, and that was the last time I'd seen it. Like, yeah, it was just a fun little Easter egg that was in there that I'd never heard anyone talk about, because, I mean, I guess there's not a lot of people talking about the live action Casper at this
Not
point.
anymore, no.
It was a big deal when it came out, but maybe not so much now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one fun thing, but you also have another like connection with like collectibles and shows and things like Ghostbusters, is that you do like action figure photography, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know if cool is the word that people are using to describe it. Dorky, weird, maybe probably adjectives I hear thrown around more. But no, I really enjoy it. And it's a thing that I kind of, so I've always collected toys and I've always collected action figures. But I've kind of always taken photos of them, but just to kind of, it was more of a way of showing what I had. It wasn't really anything meaningful. And then it just started out with me taking some pictures of toys in kind of trying to make it look more like a scene. I built like maybe it's slightly offensive, a nativity scene with action figures. And that was kind of the beginnings of that. And then took some photos of that. And that led to me kind of maybe trying to take better photos and focusing a bit more on my photography. I've always been interested in it, but I've never been what I would call a photographer by any means. And that led to me, just say take more detailed, more complex photos of toys. And then I found out that a whole bunch of other people do it. Like it's totally this thing. And I believe I might be the only person in Tasmania that's doing it. I'm holding on to that badge for now, but it's certainly not that unique. Like there's far more of it going on than I ever realized until I kind of stepped into that world. And it's been really interesting. I've learned a lot about photography. Going back to Ghostbusters, I did this event called October a little while ago where basically there was a theme every single day of October. You had to take a toy photo for it. And one of them was something to do with ghosts. And I was getting a bit bored because my photography skills were kind of starting to max out. And I felt like all my photos were starting to look a bit the same. So I said, no, I'm going to learn something totally new. I learned how to do it. Have you ever heard of Pepper's Ghost?
No.
It's like an effect where you kind of cast a reflection onto a piece of clean glass so that it looks like there's a ghost next to your actual scene.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have seen it and I have heard it described. I just never heard the term for it.
Yeah, so I think Pepper's Ghost is maybe he's the person that originated the technique, I suppose. But the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland is the most notable example that I can think of. But yeah, I learned how to do that technique, and I took a Ghostbusters picture with Slimer. So Slimer is transparent and next to a solid Ghostbuster, and it was a really cool thing that I learned. It's still maybe one of my favorite. It's not the best photo, but to learn the new skill was really interesting, and it's one that really stood out to me as a photo. So it's kind of cool that you bring it up because that Ghostbusters one's kind of a neat shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, toy photography, it's a thing that people do.
Yeah. Well, no, what I think is cool about it is because like people are just like, oh, you take pictures of your toys and you think it's like, here's my toy, click, here's a picture. But no, what you do is you create scenes and like actions, within these figures, and you put them in that scene, and it's almost like they're moving within it, or sometimes I've seen ones where you do it where it looks like it's panels of like a comic book and you're like laying out like a comic book panel, and I think it's actually pretty cool. Like, yeah, it's dorky, whatever. People call me a dork too because of my collectibles, but I get it.
Oh, I very much enjoy those monikers. So it's interesting that I've noticed. I've done some photos that I think look quite realistic. Like if you didn't know, you might not recognize them as a toy. And I've noticed that those ones do really poorly on Instagram. I think there's a point where if you make it too realistic, people don't realize it's a toy as they're flicking through their thing. They just think it's like a screenshot from a movie or something, and which is really cool. Like it's cool when people are like, "Wow, that's a toy shot. You've done something impressive." But I've noticed that they underperform on Instagram every single time. You almost need it to look a little. It needs to retain its toyness, or you lose the audience a little bit. I think.
Yeah, because people are just like, oh, it's just a picture, whatever. Whereas, if they can see it's a toy, but it's a toy moving, then you're like, oh, it's cool.
Yes, definitely.
That's awesome. Yeah. I don't know. Any other comments or anything about these movies?
Just on that, if people want to look at my toy photography, BC Talk on Instagram is the place to go. Just like the religious rock band, but BC instead. But in terms of, I don't know. I feel like we've covered a lot.
We did, yeah.
Well, also not really covering it. Like we've talked a lot around Ghostbusters, and I felt like maybe we didn't talk about the specifics of Ghostbusters 1 all that much because my love of Ghostbusters 2 just kept drawing us away. But no, I think what sticks with me is that they hold up really well. Like there are certainly character things and motivations and things that maybe are a little off in the world that we live in now. But in terms of effects, the way that the movie looks, I think it really holds up quite well. I think those practical effects, there's some blue screen things that look a bit phony. There's sometimes some stop motion that does. But overall, it never takes you out of the film. It never breaks like I said, the suspension of disbelief. It's always there. I can believe that. And because the ghosts are that little bit exaggerated and that little bit their own thing, when they don't look 100% real, it doesn't really matter because they don't need to look 100% real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I took away from it. That they do hold up, I think, pretty well as films. Remembering that they are a product of their time in terms of some of the attitudes and those kinds of things.
Is a necessity, for you to like just get over it. I agree with you. Like one of the things that I enjoyed about the ghosts in the movie, particularly, which I complain about the new ghost, like the most recent Ghostbusters movies, is even though the ghosts are still kind of cartoony, they still look like they're in the world. Whereas in the new movie, because of how they're designed and how they're done, they look separate. You know, like they look like computer generated something in a space. That's just what they look like.
And they never feel physical like they do because in Ghostbusters they're not even that consistent. Like in the original movies, there's that one guy that looks like a zombie. I think he's a taxi driver. In the first one, he just looks like a zombie. Like he doesn't even look like a Ghostbuster. But for whatever reason, he totally works. Like he still fits in with all of those other ones. And I think he's also part of one of those ghost montages where we see them catching ghosts kind of around the place. But yeah, the ghosts all look completely different. Like that ghost jogger just looks like a man that's transparent, whereas Slimer doesn't look anything like that. So, but they all feel cohesive. I don't know what it is or how they did it, but they feel cohesive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think how they're done, like what you're saying is like they have like weight in the world, you know, like they feel like they're part of something, even though each one is completely different than the other. And the thing is too, is like the first ghost you meet is the librarian, which is so completely different looking than Slimer, which is the second ghost you meet, which it just looks like comical, like it's just a giant green blob, you know.
And that library ghost, I touched on the fact that my grandma was very scared of that scene as a kid. As a older lady who looked after me as a kid, and but that scene is really, really good. Like the tension that it builds is really good. When the lady is walking through the sort of downstairs part of the library, and the cards start to go across, and the books change place, and just really nice. It's I wouldn't call it a horror movie, but they hit those horror tropes really well when they need to, and they do it really, really well in that scene, I think, and it feels really good. It also reminds me of we've been talking about Peter as a bit of a creep when he's interviewing that lady before they go downstairs, and he's asking her about mental health issues and things, and then he asks her if she's menstruating, and it's just so inappropriate. But
Yeah.
again,
I love the other librarian looks at him like shocked, like, what?
Yeah,
That's what? You know?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just being thorough. I'm like, are you though? Or are you just being gross? Like, which one really is it? Thank you.
Yeah.
And also the fact that he thinks menstruating has to do with seeing ghosts is also kind of like a scary concept.
Yeah. It's although as a bit of a ghost nerd, there is this kind of, I guess, theory that some people subscribe to that so you know poltergeists, so like ghosts that just like move things around, that is often tied in, and I'm not saying I believe this, but that is often tied in with when girls are becoming women and they're getting their period for the first time, and sexual energy and all of those things is tied in with this poltergeist. If you look up poltergeist, it's impossible to not come across this stuff. It's weird, and I think, like you, it's strange that's the maybe conclusion that these researchers have come to, but certainly there is a lot of that tied in with poltergeist stuff. So
I never realized that.
Yeah, so maybe maybe this is some of our Dan Aykroyd actually writing stuff that kind of fits in with the theories of the day. And it's also, this is before Peter's seen the ghost, and so he, I guess, doesn't believe in ghosts at this point. So it seems an odd question to ask, but yeah.
Well, no, but the thing is, now that you've said that, and we know Dan Aykroyd is actually very much into this, that is a tidbit he would know. Or him and Venkman at least would, not Venkman, Egon would know. So it would be a question on a list they'd hand to Venkman and be like, ask her questions.
And they are talking about books moving and cards moving. Like, it is poltergeist activity. Like, maybe I'm going to give my man Peter a little bit of a pass on this one, and like that he wasn't being 100% a creep. I think he was certainly being provocative in the way that he asked the question, but that actually maybe he was using some ghost theory of the day with that one.
Okay, so he gets a pass on that one. Okay, fine, whatever.
We don't rest of it, I can't say him.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, we have to hopefully get you back sometime to come back on and do this again for something awesome.
Yeah, I have to, maybe one time I could make you watch some Australian films and we could talk about those.
I'm down. Like, I've actually mainly watched like Australian horror films. Yeah. So maybe watching a non-horror film would be awesome.
I've got two classic Australian movies in mind that kind of, as we've been talking, I was like, oh, that'd be a cool thing to do. One of them, we'll keep it. We'll hold on to it. But yeah, let's talk about doing this. It might be off of my shelf for this one, but yeah, I think it could be really fun.
Okay, yeah, I could do a special episode for that. Why not? I throw them in every once in a while.
Awesome.
Let's do it. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it for this episode of Off My Shelf. Until next time, you can follow along on Instagram and Twitter at ohmyshelf, or you can send an email to ohmyshelf@gmail.com. On the next episode, we're doing something special. It's another Twitch takeover. Erica will be back, allowing me to take over her channel to talk about Gladiator and Go. We are doing the recording on April 1st at 6:30 p.m. So follow Erica on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter at Erica in Glasses. That's ErikaInGlasses. I will also put all of these links on the website, so it's easy for you to find her. So make sure to drop by as we chat about the movies, answer questions, and interact with the viewers. Hope you'll be here to listen.